Chapter 1193. In the imagination of the audience, the last collision between the pirate sword immortal and Gu Xianyuan should be earth-shattering, a battle that would turn the entire world upside down. But when the two of them really collided, the scene was unexpectedly calm. It was like two actors holding two wooden swords colliding with each other. Other than that, there was no other movement. What's going on? Why is there no movement? Seeing this scene, not only were the audience at the scene and in front of the TV confused, but even the West Sea Dragon King Aorun and Guan Yu, who were watching from the side, were puzzled. However, unlike the audience who were completely at a loss, although the two flood-level Yuan Ko didn't see the door, they felt a power that made them tremble from the bottom of their hearts burst out in an instant and then disappeared without a trace. What was the move you used just now? After a long silence, the pirate sword immortal turned around, frowned, and asked with a slightly trembling voice. Replying to Senior's question, this junior didn't use one move just now, but three. Having said that, Gu Xianyuan suddenly pressed her chest, then her face, her arms, her thighs. In short, all the parts of her body that were exposed outside of her clothes all cracked open with bloody wounds, and the places that were covered by her clothes also instantly turned bright red. Then, the clothes that Gu Xianyuan wore were already soaked in blood, and Gu Xuanyuan's body was already close to a state of collapse. But it was also in such a state that Gu Xianyuan still stood, letting the bright red blood flow out of her body, dyeing the platform under her feet red. Injured, Miss Gu Shirhan is injured. Seeing this scene, some of the audience shouted excitedly. This was really not easy. This challenge had been going on for 5 days, and this was the first time they saw Gu Xianyuan bleed, and the first time they saw Gu Xianyuan get injured. The pirate sword immortal won. We won. Another part of the audience shouted in joy. Gu Xuanyuan's injuries were so serious that there were wounds all over her body. However, the pirate sword immortal looked the same as before the battle. Other than his pale face, there was nothing different. Clearly, the victory of the battle belonged to the pirate sword immortal. Enough, you spineless fellows, stop talking. These two are heroes, shut your mouths. Facing the cheers of the audience, most of the audience around them unexpectedly took the initiative to stop these guys. The reason why they would defend Gu Xianyuan was because the strength that Gu Xianyuan had displayed was genuine and powerful. These Londoners felt that even if they were to lose to Gu Xianyuan, it would not be too shameful of a matter. The second reason was because Gu Xianyuan's opponent was the pirate sword immortal, a veteran expert among the immortal sword tier sword wielders. He was one of the top 5 immortal sword tier sword wielders. For such an expert to defeat Gu Xianyuan, a spirit sword level sword wielder, there was really nothing to brag about. What's more, Gu Xianyuan also forced the pirate sword immortal's biggest trick, forcing the pirate sword immortal to gather all the power of the 7 warlords of the Sea King's way on himself to achieve the final victory, which was not much different from losing. So there are 3 moves. Hearing Gu Xuanyuan's words, the pirate sword immortal nodded slightly, cupped his hands and said, I wonder if you could tell me which 3 moves it is? This junior dares not answer. Gu Xianyuan coughed out blood as she spoke. These 3 moves are Green Lotus White Root Body, Legend of Primal Chaos, and Primal Chaos Return. These 3 moves. Green Lotus White Root Body. Legend of Primal Chaos. Primal Chaos Return. The pirate sword immortal repeated these names over and over in his mind. After a while, he forced a smile and asked Gu Xianyuan, please forgive this old man's poor eyesight. This old man knows all the sword arts in this world like the back of his hand, but these 3 moves have never been heard of before. I wonder which sword art these 3 moves come from, and who created them. This Green Lotus White Root Body is one of the 3 Green Lotus swords passed down by my Gu family's ancestor. As for who the creator is, this humble one really does not know. Gu Xianyuan hesitated for a while, then actually told the pirate sword immortal the origins of these sword arts. As for Legend of Primal Chaos and Primal Chaos Return, they are 2 moves from the Sword Art of Primal Chaos. As for the creator of the Sword Art of Primal Chaos, it is not some ancient person, but my little brother Gohan. What? You're saying that the last 2 moves that you used to defeat me were created by your little brother Gohan? Hearing Gu Xuanyuan's words, the pirate sword immortal could no longer maintain his calm expression. His whole body went limp, and he collapsed to the ground, muttering in disbelief, "Heavens! How is this possible? Such a powerful sword art was created by a 20-something-year-old youth? I've lived half my life like a dog. No, it's not just me, I'm afraid even Kanzu and Zhetianjiendi have lived like dogs compared to your little brother." It was no wonder that the pirate sword immortal would lose his composure like this. Who could have imagined that such a powerful and terrifying sword art, which could even be called the #1 sword art in the world, was actually created by a 20-something-year-old youth? This tore apart the pirate sword immortal's worldview, as well as the worldview of all the sword wielders present who knew what this meant. The future of this world depends on you. The pirate sword immortal fiercely stretched out a hand, and after saying these words that were like his last words, his arm went limp, and his whole body directly fainted on the platform. Senior Pirate! Senior Pirate! When Gu Xianyuan saw this scene, she immediately dragged her bloodied body and rushed to the side of the pirate sword immortal. She quickly took out the immortal sword-grade medical pod from her dimensional pocket and carefully placed the pirate sword immortal into the medical pod. What happened? Oh my God! The pirate sword immortal! The entire audience seemed to have lit up with explosives, and the entire place exploded. Everyone's heart surged with an ominous premonition. Could it be that the pirate sword immortal had died in this battle? Had he died at the hands of Gu Xianyuan? At this time, the staff around the platform finally gathered around and examined the medical pod. Then, Harry Chang Rua's anxious expression relaxed, and he explained to the audience, "The pirate sword immortal fainted because all the sword elements in his body had been used up. The pirate sword immortal's body is actually not that big of a problem. After recuperating in the medical pod for a few weeks, he will completely recover. There is no need to worry about the pirate sword immortal's safety." Phew! After hearing Harry Chang Rua's explanation, all the people in London heaved a long sigh of relief. It was good that the pirate sword immortal was fine. Just now, they had almost thought that the pirate sword immortal was dead. However, after this moment of relief, the mood of the audience immediately became extremely bad. From the appearance of the 2 people, the bloodied and injured Gu Xianyuan was obviously not as good as the pirate sword immortal, who was in good health. However, at this time, Gu Xianyuan, who was covered in blood, was busy treating the pirate sword immortal, while the pirate sword immortal was directly lying in the medical pod in a coma. Was there even a need to say who won or lost? Obviously, Gu Xianyuan had won in the end. The dignified pirate sword immortal had been defeated by Gu Xianyuan. The people in London were completely silent. They did not know what to say. Even such a powerful pirate sword immortal had been defeated by Gu Xianyuan. At this moment, other than Longsher Jiendi, there was no one else in London who could defeat Gu Xianyuan. Ancestral Dragon! That old bastard pirate! What's even more ridiculous is that this king actually did not see how he was defeated. In the sky, West Sea Dragon King Ao Run lowered his head and said to himself. At this moment, his mind was still recalling the battle just now. He wanted to figure out where Gu Xianyuan had won and where the pirate sword immortal had lost. However, no matter how West Sea Dragon King Ao Run recalled, he could not figure out what was hidden in it. This could only mean one thing. The swordsmanship of Gu Xianyuan and the pirate sword immortal had exceeded Ao Run's understanding. Perhaps in terms of pure strength, Ao Run was still a step ahead, but in terms of skill, Ao Run was completely inferior to these 2 guys. This is not fun anymore. It seems that this king has to re-evaluate humans. At the very least, I have to re-evaluate this woman named Gu Shirhan. Ao Run looked deeply at Gu Xianyuan on the platform, and the dragon whiskers on the corner of his mouth suddenly curled up. It's rare for this little bastard 28 to do such a good thing. It seems that this king has to agree to his request. I really want to fight with her, but how can I bully a woman? On the other side, Second Master Guan Yu tugged at his beard and said, Everyone knows that our Second Master Guan Yu is a martial sage, the idol of all martial artists in the world. How can such a man fight with a woman? The people of London watched as the staff carried the medical cabin containing the pirate's sword immortal down, and then looked at Gu Xianyuan, who was still bleeding on the platform, with a complicated expression. At this time, the 5-day challenge was completely over. If they wanted to see the next battle, it was estimated that it would be the battle between Gu Xianyuan and Long Shijiendi. At that time, would the winner really be Long Shijiendi? Once upon a time, the people of London didn't even have 0.001% confidence. They didn't believe that Long Shijiendi could be defeated by a spirit sword-level swordsman. But with the fall of the pirate sword immortal, the people of London suddenly felt that there was at least a 30% chance that Long Shijiendi would win. Thinking of this, the people of London felt a great sadness in their hearts. Even if Long Shijiendi won in the end, London would be completely destroyed, and all the people of London would never be able to raise their heads in front of the people of Yuzhong for the rest of their lives. Disperse, disperse, go home and sleep. As the heartbroken Londoners were preparing to leave this sorrowful place, thunder suddenly roared in the sky. A virtual, hazy figure that appeared to be formed from lightning suddenly appeared in the sky above the platform. The figure looked down at Gu Xianyuan, who was on the platform. Gu Shirhan, we have underestimated you. All the people of London who were ready to leave suddenly stood motionless. They never thought that at the last moment of today, Long Shijiendi, who had not shown up, would suddenly appear in this way. Chapter 1194. Junior Gu Shirhan pays respect to your majesty, Long Shijiendi. Seeing Long Shijiendi's humanoid figure in the sky, Gu Xianyuan immediately bent down and saluted Long Shijiendi. Although they were about to become opponents, no matter who won or lost, before Gu Xianyuan ascended to the throne, Gu Xianyuan would always maintain her etiquette to Long Shijiendi. Very good. You have once again surprised me, very good. Long Shijiendi said very good twice in a row. From this, it could be seen that Long Shijiendi himself was also shocked by Gu Xuanyuan's performance. Thank you, your majesty, for your praise, Gu Xianyuan said with a calm face. This battlefield is good. Long Shijiendi's humanoid figure made of lightning looked at the boundless sea, and then without lowering his head, said to Gu Xianyuan, How about you and I use this sea as the battlefield? This sea with a circumference of 300 miles will be our battlefield. As your majesty commands. Gu Xianyuan cupped her hands in obeisance, without any objection. It seems that this duel is inevitable. Your majesty has begun to discuss the battlefield. Hearing that Long Shijiendi and Gu Xianyuan were going to be opponents, the hearts of the audience could not help but raise a sense of sadness. They had gathered the strength of all the powerhouses in the city of London and fought for 5 days in order to stop this battle. But this battle was inevitable in the end. How sad and King sad was this. You are a spirit sword-level swordsman, so you don't have the ability to travel through the void. I also disdain to fight you with the power of the void, lest you feel that I have an unfair advantage. Long Shijiendi lightly said, How about this? I will set up a void stop array here in advance tonight, so that no one can travel through the void in this array. We can have a fair fight, and I will not take advantage of you. Thank you, your majesty. This time, Gu Xianyuan willingly saluted Long Shijiendi. In the battle with Long Shijiendi, if one were to ask what Gu Xianyuan was most afraid of, it would undoubtedly be the fear that Long Shijiendi would travel through the void and launch an attack on her through the void. If such an attack was unleashed by an immortal sword rank sword wielder, Gu Xianyuan might still be able to barely parry it. However, if it was used by an emperor sword rank sword wielder, then Gu Xianyuan would really be in a difficult situation. This time, Longshu Jiandi had taken the initiative to suggest sealing the void, which could be considered to have solved a big problem for Gu Xianyuan. From this, it could also be seen that although Longshu Jiandi was very unreasonable in doing certain things, he had not lost the self-esteem of an emperor sword wielder. Right, there's one more thing. Longshu Jiandi suddenly lowered his head and glanced at the execution immortal sword in Gu Xuanyuan's hand. The lightning humanoid figure was in a trance for a moment. The chaos sword technique you just mentioned, was it really created by your younger brother Gohan alone? Did he really create this all on his own? Hearing this question from Longshu Jiandi, Gu Xianyuan suddenly realized that this was probably the real reason why Longshu Jiandi had suddenly appeared. It was her chaos sword technique that had forced Longshu Jiandi to appear. Such a terrifying sword technique, even an emperor sword rank sword wielder like Longshu Jiandi had to ask about it clearly. Yes and no. Gu Xianyuan did not hesitate. In fact, when she had taken the initiative to spit out the name Chaos Sword Technique, Gu Xianyuan had already thought about it. Gohan could not continue to show weakness like this. Gohan's strength had already reached the point where he was not afraid of anyone other than an emperor sword rank sword wielder. Now was the time to let the name of Gohan resound throughout the world, to prepare to establish his own force, to pave the way for the future ascension to the throne, and to lead the entire human society. Therefore, in the battle with the pirate sword immortal, Gu Xianyuan had unreservedly displayed her strength, and at the same time, took the initiative to make her real identity, Gohan, famous. The identity of the creator of Chaos Sword Technique was only the first step, and the following answer was the second step. Yes and no. Gu Xianyuan said proudly, the first 4 moves of this Chaos Sword Technique were created by my younger brother alone, but the last 2 moves were created by my younger brother and Kenzu. My younger brother originally wanted to be Kenzu's disciple, but Kenzu said that he was not qualified to be my younger brother's disciple. Therefore, my younger brother called Kenzu master, but Kenzu called my younger brother junior brother. What? Kenzu. Master. Junior brother. Gu Xuanyuan's words were like a huge grenade, exploding in everyone's mind. Not only did the ordinary people react this way, even Longshu Jiandi's lightning figure in the sky shook violently, like a light bulb with an unstable voltage. The old dragon in the sky directly fell down, splashing into the sea, and the scarlet hare horse under Marshal Saint Guan Yu's crotch neighed wildly, and Guan Yu's face completely turned from red to black, looking as ugly as Liu Bei's death. Little girl, don't talk nonsense. Kenzu has already disappeared for 1,000 years, so how did your younger brother study sword techniques together with Kenzu? Longshu Jiandi asked in disbelief. Although Kenzu has already disappeared, Kenzu's sword mark soul mark has not disappeared. Your Majesty Longshu, you can write a letter to the Lun Yen family to ask about it. I believe that the Lun Yen family will not hide it from your Majesty Longshu. Gu Xianyuan said loudly. Very good. I look forward to a fight with you. After Longshu Jiandi finished speaking, the lightning figure in the sky disappeared completely. It seemed that he needed to digest the news he got today. After looking around with interest, Gu Xianyuan directly got into her maglev flying car and disappeared from the city of London. The whole platform regained its calmness, as if the battle just now had never happened. But the calmness of the platform caused the whole network to explode, and a shocking title instantly blew up the whole network. After 1,000 years, Kenzu reappears, calls the wanted man brother, and claims that his strength is not as good as modern people. It was precisely because of this shocking title that the news spread crazily throughout the network. In just one night, everyone on the internet already knew about it. Today, a great expert was suddenly born in the world. This expert was so powerful that even the sword master, who was known as the strongest in human history, had to address him as a senior and junior brother. And the news that the three siblings of the family were all incomparable experts. Soon, a lot of online comments also appeared on the major forums. The owners of these comments were some very well-known combat analysts, who liked to analyze the battles of the sword-bearers and the strength ranking of the sword-bearers. And after these combat analysts watched the video of Gu Xianyuan and the pirate sword immortal, even the most mean combat analysts had to admit that this spirit sword level sword bearer named Gu Shirhan had defeated the pirate sword immortal with real strength. Gu Shirhan was already the undisputed #1 spirit sword level sword bearer in the world. Of course, perhaps the #1 spirit sword level sword bearer in the world should be Gu Shirhan's younger brother Gohan. It was just that since Gohan was wanted, he had never appeared in front of the world again. Gohan's real combat strength was still an unsolved mystery. However, since this Gu Shirhan said that the Chaos Sword technique was created by Gohan, then as the creator, Gohan's swordsmanship must be higher than Gu Shirhan's. Then, from this point of analysis, perhaps Gohan was the real #1 spirit sword level sword bearer. And more combat analysts said with certainty that this time, humans might give birth to a new legend. Kunzu, who was regarded as a god by humans and thought that they could never surpass him in this lifetime, was very likely to fall from this altar. As long as Gohan could successfully synchronize and harmonize the Emperor Sword level sword bearer and become an Emperor Sword level sword bearer. One must know that the industry of combat analysts had always been about to shock people to death. Only by writing more shocking, more exaggerated, and more dramatic content could the readers have greater interest in reading. So later, some combat analysts even said with certainty that if Gohan could ascend to the throne and become the emperor, the day when humans would eliminate all the Yuan Kos and re-rule the entire Earth would come. After a night of preparation, when the sun rose the next day, all the cities, including Lungqing, turned their attention to the battle in London. Other than Yuzhong City's official TV station, which was specially designated, the media from the other 6 base cities waved the banknotes in their hands and crazily flattered the Changrua family, asking for the broadcasting rights of this battle. In the end, just by selling the broadcasting rights, the Changrua family earned a total of 170 million renminbi. This was 1,700 times the cost of building the offshore platform, which made Harry Changrua smile so widely that he couldn't close his mouth. According to incomplete statistics, among the nearly 500 million people in the 8 base cities, about 200 million people paid attention to the live broadcast of this battle, and another 300 million people watched the recorded broadcast of this battle. The viewing rate could be said to be 100%. And it wasn't only humans who were looking forward to this battle. Before the battle even started, 4 5-clawed golden dragons appeared in the sky at the same time, and in the end, they turned into 4 kings wearing dragon robes. Oh my God! The dragon kings of the 4 seas, they're all here. Seeing the appearance of these 4 5-clawed golden dragons, every audience present opened their mouths wide, unable to close them. The dragon kings of the 4 seas appearing at the same place at the same time was something that had never happened in hundreds of years. The last time the dragon kings of the 4 seas appeared at the same time was during King Arthur's betrayal. At that time, the dragon kings of the 4 seas acted at the same time to stop King Jiandi, which allowed the martyr's palace to catch a breath and not let all of its strongholds in the human world be destroyed in the hands of humans. And this time, why did the dragon kings of the 4 seas appear at the same time? Could it be that they were planning to attack London? Everyone's hearts were in their throats, but they soon calmed down because the dragon kings of the 4 seas spoke in the direction of the palace in the city in unison. The dragon kings of the 4 seas have come to watch the battle. I wonder if His Majesty Longshire welcomes them? It turned out that the dragon kings of the 4 seas had come to watch the battle. But this wasn't strange. This battle could be said to be unprecedented in human history. The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were eager to know what the upper limit of Gu Xianyuan's strength was. It was only natural that they would decide their attitude towards her in the future. Since you're here, take things as they come. Since the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas have come, there's no reason for this junior to not welcome you. Take your seats. As soon as Long Shi Jiandi's voice fell, 4 golden dragon thrones suddenly appeared in the sky out of nowhere. The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas looked at each other and smiled, then sat down on the dragon thrones. The shock brought by the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas had yet to end. On the other side, 3 men riding on fine horses arrived at lightning speed. Tesla, Guan Yu, and Temujin have come to watch the battle. I wonder if His Majesty Long Shi welcomes them? The 3 Yuan Kos had actually come to watch the battle just like the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas. Why are they here? Yeah, why do they have the guts to come? I think it's too dangerous here. Why don't we hide inside the city and watch the live broadcast? Seeing the appearance of the 3 flood-level Yuan Kos of the Martyr's Palace, the audience in the venue couldn't help but want to run back into the super-dimensional barrier. These 3 Yuan Kos were not like the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas. Although they had some friction with humans, they always maintained a neutral and harmonious state. These 3 Yuan Kos were people who were numb to killing. No less than 1 million humans had died in the hands of these 3 Yuan Kos. With the 3 of them appearing at the same time, there was no guarantee that another massacre was about to take place. Since you've come, you are guests. If the 3 of you can abide by your duties, even if I don't welcome you, I can only ask the 3 of you to sit down. After Long Shi Jiandi finished speaking, another 3 golden dragon thrones appeared. Tesla, Guan Yu, and Temujin also sat down without hesitation. At this moment, on this battlefield, 7 flood-level Yuan Kos had instantly gathered. Together with Long Shi Jiandi's who was about to appear, there was a total of 8 Emperor Sword-level sword-bearers. This scene made everyone who was watching the live broadcast feel their blood boiling. They were even more crazily looking forward to the battle that was about to begin. They were looking forward to the unprecedented battle between Gu Xianyuan and Long Shi Jiandi. Chapter 1195. Looking at the 7 Yuan Ko swordsmen sitting in the sky, who were equivalent to Emperor Sword-level swordsmen, all the spectators under the sky were so scared that they did not dare to breathe. This was too scary. If these 7 people went crazy, it was hard to say what would happen to London. At the very least, the land and the sea outside London would all be turned into nothingness. Time passed, and when the hour hand gradually approached the position of 10 o'clock in the morning, the void on the platform broke open, and Long Shi Jiandi, dressed in ordinary casual clothes, walked directly out of the void door. It was no longer the lightning figure that had appeared before, but the real Long Shi Jiandi. At the same time, a maglev flying car drove out of London. The audience present recognized this maglev flying car. It was Gu Xianyuan's maglev flying car. It seemed that today's 2 protagonists had arrived at this arena one after another. Long Shi Jiandi, who was in the sky, was about to say something when he suddenly heard the sound of gongs and drums in the distance. However, this sound did not seem to come from London, but from the distant end of the sea and the sky. What kind of music is this? Why have I never heard such music before? Hearing the sound of gongs and drums, the audience present could not help but talk. This kind of music, which was a combination of instruments such as swona, gongs, drums, flutes, and so on, was a song that the audience present had never heard before. Yes, but it's strange that this song has a kind of festive feeling in my head, making me want to laugh. Another audience member said while shaking his head. This sound is. As the sound of gongs and drums became louder and louder, warrior sage Guan Yu, who was sitting on the dragon throne, frowned and said thoughtfully, "Is this the sound of gongs and drums at a wedding?" Second Master Guan Yu has good hearing, but in this world, only you can still recognize this song. The Dragon King of the West Cao Run said with a laugh. Indeed, after the great cultural destruction, the world had not thought of pure traditional Chinese wedding songs for hundreds of years. Therefore, when the audience present heard the cheerful sound of gongs and drums, they were puzzled. "So you're saying that this music was caused by you?" Guan Yu asked. "Look." Ao Run pointed to the west. Everyone followed Ao Run's finger and looked in the same direction. They were stunned to find that in the west, where the sea and the sky met, there was actually an extremely arrogant team. This procession was made up of over 100 true dragons. At the very front were 48 true dragons blowing trumpets and beating drums. Behind them were another 48 true dragons pulling 48 dragon carriages. Each dragon carriage was filled with pearls, gold, luminous pearls, jasper, and other rare treasures. In the middle of the procession, 16 true dragons were lifting an extremely luxurious dragon sedan. This dragon sedan was woven with colorful silk and embedded with 18,000 pearls of exactly the same size. In addition, there were 32 football-sized luminous pearls embedded in various positions of the dragon sedan. In front of the palanquin, there were 32 true dragons holding up a bright red dragon plaque. The words "Bride Escort" were clearly written on the plaque. This team of 144 true dragons was actually here to escort the bride. When this general was still alive, a big family would at most call 7 or 8 dragon dance teams to get married. But now, there are actually more than 100 real true dragons coming to escort the bride. Seeing this scene in front of him, Lord Guan unexpectedly showed a somewhat envious expression. At the beginning, this wedding procession was still at the end of the sea and the sky, but in the blink of an eye, it stopped on the platform. The media below the stage frantically aimed the cameras in their hands at the wedding procession in the sky, trying to capture every detail of this extremely luxurious wedding procession. And the audience watching the live broadcast through the TV station also saw this shocking matter for the first time. While reveling in the luxury of this wedding procession, everyone couldn't help but ask such a question in their heart. "What is this wedding procession for?" "Your Majesty Ao Run, what do you mean by this?" Seeing more than 100 true dragons stop in front of him, Long Shi Jiandi's eyes widened, and a burst of power quickly rushed out with him as the center. Those true dragons who were beating gongs and drums, carrying palanquins, holding up plaques, and pulling carriages trembled slightly, and then immediately returned to their original state, no longer twisting in the slightest. These are all genuine nether-rank true dragons. Seeing this scene, the other 4 peak experts couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. They thought that Ao Run had only sent some underage dragons, but they didn't expect that these true dragons were all peak nether-rank true dragons, the mainstay of the dragon race. The meaning behind this was huge. "Hey, Your Majesty Long Shi, don't be anxious, don't scare my people. As you can see, they are here to escort the bride, not to fight," West Sea Dragon King Ao Run said with a smile. "Escort the bride?" Long Shi Jiandi snorted coldly. West Sea Dragon King has such a big face, actually using 144 nether-rank true dragons to escort the bride. "Your Majesty Ao Run, as far as I know, your entire West Sea Dragon Palace only has 80 nether-rank true dragons. Where did you get 144 nether-rank true dragons?" "Hee. My West Sea Dragon Palace doesn't have them, but my 3 elder brothers do. I shamelessly borrowed them from my 3 elder brothers," Ao Run said while looking at East Sea Dragon King Ao Guang, South Sea Dragon King Ao Qin, and North Sea Dragon King Ao Shun. The 3 Dragon Kings also nodded in unison, stroked their 2 to 3 meters long dragon whiskers, and said with a smile, "Not bad, not bad. Since little brother Ao Run has a happy occasion, as his elder brothers, we naturally have to help." "Then I'm curious, Your Majesty Ao Run sent this unprecedented escort team. Which dragon lady are you going to marry? And why did you come to my arena today to escort the bride?" Long Shi Jiandi said with a cold expression. In Long Shi Jiandi's view, this escort team is probably here to cause trouble for him. Hey, that's not right. Who said that my escort team is here to marry a dragon lady? Ao Run laughed heartily and said, which dragon lady is not a descendant of my dragon palace of the four seas? If you are marrying a dragon lady, there is no need for us to not put up such a big battle array. To tell you the truth, this time I came to propose to one of the beauties present on behalf of my unfilial son Ao Guang. Humph humph, what a joke, the beauties present are all human race, how can they be compared to your true dragon clan? Long Shi Jiandi's expression suddenly changed greatly, and a monstrous aura spread out. He glared at Ao Run and said, Ao Run, are you crazy? Did you forget that humans and dragons are different? Your Majesty Long Shi, you are too much. Ao Run patted Long Shi Jiandi's shoulder and said, our true dragon clan doesn't mind winning a human girl, why should your human clan mind? I heard that your human clan often fantasize about a dragon lady marrying you humans, such as that splendid spring sunshine Zhubeiji, and also some Legend of the Dragon TV series. Oh, that's right, I remember that during the Tang Dynasty there was a boy named Li Chaowei who wrote a legendary novel called Biography of Lu Yi, which was the story of our dragon lady and your human man falling in love and marrying each other. I heard that it was even used in the textbooks of your Celestial Dynasty era. Isn't this very good? This shows that our human clan and dragon clan have intermarried since ancient times. Today, I've asked for a woman from the mortal world to be my son's wife. This is also a good thing for the two clans to be on good terms. This is a very good thing. This West Sea Dragon King Ao Run said a lot of things to him, but the problem is that none of the humans present could understand the illusions. What splendid spring sunshine Zhubeiji, what legend of the dragon, what biography of Louis, they had never heard of any of them. No. Long Shi Jiandi, regardless of what this West Sea Dragon King said, was adamant. This is not up to your Majesty to decide. Ao Run chuckled. The person whom this king is asking for is not a human from your London city. As the Dragon Lion Sword Emperor, you can't do anything about it. It's better for this king to ask himself, Ao Run said, ignoring Long Shi Jiandi's obstruction. He slowly landed on the platform and stood beside the maglev flying car. Then, under the gaze of the people all over the world, he bowed to the maglev flying car, and then said with a face full of hope, Miss Gu Shirhan, I, this old dragon, will give up my old face today and shamelessly plead Miss Shirhan on behalf of my good-for-nothing son. Would you be willing to be the wife of my West Sea Dragon clan? Crash. As soon as Ao Run said this, not only the people on the platform, but also the people in the 8 Bay cities were in an uproar. They never thought that this West Sea Dragon King would actually come to propose marriage to Gu Shirhan. CK the Dragon Clan, how dare you touch our goddess? The humans present were probably afraid of the presence of the 4 Sea Dragon Kings, so they did not dare to have any reaction. However, the audience in front of the television immediately became angry. What kind of joke was this? A stupid dragon clan actually dared to covet their human goddess. Moreover, she was so powerful. She was only a spirit sword level, but she could defeat an immortal sword level swordbearer, and even compete with an emperor sword level swordbearer. These dragons were definitely crazy. As a result, the humans in the 8 Bay cities began to become irritable. They all cursed the dragon clan as bastards, and that they were toads lusting after swan meat. Among them, the people of Yuzhang reacted the most violently. Gu Shirhan claimed to be from Yuzhang, so Yuzhang City naturally became Gu Shirhan's home. A perfect goddess like Gu Shirhan, of course, should be digested by Yuzhang City. How could she marry a dragon clan? This was unacceptable. Just like Gu Shirhan, with Gu Shirhan's challenge in the past 5 days, a large number of Gu Shirhan's die-hard fans appeared on the internet. Since ancient times, die-hard fans were the same. Even if their idol had a little bit of a love scandal, they would cry and scream as if their mother had died. They would crazily curse and insult the target of the scandal. Unfortunately, although these humans were very angry, they could only roar through the television. There was no way they could come to the arena outside London. After everyone vented their anger, they could only pray in their hearts that Gu Shirhan would refuse the Dragon Clan's unreasonable request. This should be a matter of course. Which human woman would be willing to marry a pervert like the Dragon Clan? At this time, Gu Xianyuan, who was in the maglev flying car, did not speak, but Ao Run was chattering through the maglev flying car. He said in a long-winded manner, "Miss Shirhan, you don't know this, but after you saved my worthless unfilial son, my unfilial son has been yearning for you day and night. He's in a trance as if he's lost his soul. He doesn't look like a dragon at all. He's worse than a loach in the mud. I hope you can fulfill my unfilial son's yearning, Mississippi." Ao Run was so long-winded, but Gu Xianyuan, who was in the maglev flying car, did not respond. Even though it was already past 10 o'clock in the morning, there was no movement in the maglev flying car. When it was almost 11 o'clock in the morning, Ao Run's mouth was so dry that he could not speak. When all the audience's patience was exhausted, Long Shurjiendi finally could not help but fly down from the sky and frown at the maglev flying car. "You don't have to be afraid of him. If you don't want to, just say it. I'll take care of it for you. It's getting late now. You'd better start fighting as soon as possible." There was still no response from the maglev flying car. When Long Shurjiendi was about to say something, Ao Run suddenly stopped in front of Long Shurjiendi with a hand and said with a wry smile, "Your Majesty, can you let this king say one last thing?" Long Shurjiendi did not speak, but this also showed his attitude. "I know that Miss Shirhan is a little unwilling to marry my disdainful unfilial son, but I, Ao Run, today, on behalf of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, make a promise to Miss Shirhan, and at the same time, make a promise to all the human race." Ao Run paused, took a deep breath, and then said in a loud voice that could be heard clearly in the whole world, "I promise Miss Gu Shirhan here, as long as Miss Gu Shirhan is willing to marry my disdainful unfilial son, my dragon race will henceforth change its course, and is willing to advance and retreat with the human race, go through trials and tribulations, and work hand in hand. The human race's difficulties are my dragon race's difficulties. My dragon race will do its best to save you, even if it means the destruction of our race." F***ck. All the audience felt that their heads were about to explode again. The meaning of Ao Run's words could not be more obvious. As long as Gu Shirhan was willing to marry his son, then his dragon race was willing to give up the neutral position for the past 1,000 years, and completely join the side of the human race, and fight side by side with the human race. It could be imagined that once such a powerful force like the dragon race of the Four Seas joined the human race, then although the comparison of the human race and Yuan Ko's hard power would not be overturned, but the gap would be pulled to a very small extent. At least on this sea, the human race's strength could completely crush all of Yuan Ko's. After understanding this point, the position of the human audience, who had just jumped up in anger, changed dramatically in an instant. They had just thought that Gu Shirhan absolutely could not marry the dragon race, but now they suddenly began to look forward to Gu Shirhan agreeing to the dragon race's request, agreeing to marry a dragon race in exchange for the entire dragon race joining the human race. In this way, the safety of the entire human race would be greatly improved, and the possibility of them dying in the hands of Yuan Ko would be greatly reduced. At this moment, do not criticize human nature, because human nature is like this. Of course, these were just the views of the ignorant commoners. In the eyes of the real higher-ups, the dragon race's statement was very problematic. It was not that the higher-ups thought that the dragon race's words were false, but that there must be a deep conspiracy hidden in the dragon race's words. Otherwise, even if Gu Xuanyuan's strength was heaven-defying, the dragon race had no reason to go against their position of 1,000 years and take the huge risk to join the human race's camp. There must be a huge conspiracy behind this. Ao Run, are you crazy? What nonsense are you talking about? Guan Yu and the others jumped up in anger. What a joke! If the dragon race really joined hands with the human race, then all the strongholds of the Martyr's Palace above the sea would be finished. How could they accept such a thing happening? Therefore, although Tesla tried his best to dissuade them, the two hot-tempered Guan Yu and Temujin were the first to rush up and grab Ao Run's dragon horns, as if they wanted to reason with him. The scene immediately fell into chaos. Gu Xianyuan and the Sword Emperor of Dragon and Lion had not yet started fighting, but the two sides had already started fighting. The humans were also happy to watch a good show of dogs biting each other. For a moment, no one paid attention to the maglev flying car and Gu Xuanyuan's situation. No one cared whether Gu Xianyuan was in the car or not. Chapter 1196. The Glastonbury Stronghold was the largest stronghold of the Palace of Valhalla in the suburbs of London. It was located about 180 kilometers west of London and was an important stronghold for the Palace of Valhalla to control London. Ever since the stronghold had been occupied by the Palace of Valhalla, there had been at least 7 large-scale battles between the City of London and the Palace of Valhalla over the ownership of the stronghold. There were wins and losses, and 2 of the battles had even completely expelled the Palace of Valhalla from the stronghold. However, the City of London didn't have the ability to defend the stronghold. Therefore, when the City of London's power declined, the Palace of Valhalla's power would return to the stronghold like an unkillable cockroach. After this cycle for a long time, the City of London had lost interest in attacking the stronghold again. As long as the stronghold didn't have any ideas about attacking the City of London, the City of London would pretend it didn't see it. Originally, the Glastonbury stronghold was usually guarded by 1 flood-level Yuan Ko. Sometimes, there wasn't even a flood-level Yuan Ko. There were only 1 or 2 universe-level Yuan Ko guarding the stronghold. However, when Long Shi Jiandi, an Emperor sword wielder, appeared in London, the Glastonbury stronghold's importance suddenly increased. The Palace of Valhalla immediately sent 3 flood-level Yuan Ko to guard the stronghold. These 3 flood-level Yuan Ko's goal wasn't to attack London. With an Emperor sword wielder and a super-dimensional wall protection system, the base city was almost an impenetrable fortress. Unless the Palace of Valhalla could gather 30 flood-level Yuan Ko, they wouldn't even be able to touch the super-dimensional wall protection system. The purpose of these 3 flood-level Yuan Ko staying at the Glastonbury stronghold was very simple. They wanted to restrain Long Shi Jiandi and prevent Long Shi Jiandi from moving freely. Especially when the Palace of Valhalla started to plan something big, the 3 flood-level Yuan Ko would do everything possible to keep Long Shi Jiandi here, preventing him from supporting the Palace of Valhalla. Just like the attack on Yuzhang City a month ago, it was these 3 flood-level Yuan Ko who held Long Shi Jiandi back, preventing Long Shi Jiandi from going to Yuzhang City to support. Although the people of Yuzhang City and Gu Xianyuan didn't believe this, today, the Glastonbury stronghold seemed a little quiet and peaceful because the 3 flood-level Yuan Ko guarding the stronghold had all gone to London to watch the battle. Without the restraint of the flood-level Yuan Ko, the low-level Yuan Ko with low intelligence had already run all over the mountains and plains. The high-level Yuan Ko with normal intelligence were also a little lax. They probably thought that both the humans and the main force of Yuan Ko were attracted by the duel and that there wouldn't be any accidents at the Glastonbury stronghold, so even their defenses were a lot slack. In the past, there were at least 100 sentries around the Glastonbury stronghold, but now there were at most 30 people there, and these people didn't have the mood to monitor the situation around them. So when a tall man in white appeared at the Glastonbury stronghold with an unconscious human in his hand, the 2 Yuan Ko guarding the entrance were shocked and looked at the man in white warily. "What are you doing? Didn't you say that everyone here is on our side? What's the meaning of this?" The man in white asked unhappily when he saw the 2 Yuan Ko guarding the door pick up their weapons. "On our side." The 2 Yuan Ko looked at each other, then carefully looked at the man in white. After they found a trace of rich dimensional energy, the vigilance on their faces disappeared without a trace. Their expressions became relaxed, and they said to the man in white with a smile, "Brother, where are you from? Why haven't I seen you before?" "Sahib, I was still drinking wine yesterday, and today I've come to this godforsaken place. I even met a woman who wanted to kill me on the way. If I didn't have some skills, I'm afraid I would have died in her hands." The white-clothed man gestured to the woman in his hand, then sighed and said, "But thanks to this woman, I at least learned a little about the situation of this world. I heard that you and Bai are on the same side, so I found this place." "So you're a brother who just came here through the dimensional gate. No wonder you look so unfamiliar." The two Yuan Ko guarding the door laughed and immediately let down their guard. "But brother, although you're on the same side as us, you're actually divided into some factions. Who doesn't know what your identity is in the other world? But I can tell you that this stronghold is controlled by our martyr's palace. Only those brothers who are real humans in the other world can join. If you're not human in the other world, you can find another faction. There will always be people on your side." What a coincidence! If Bai isn't a real human in the other world, then what is he? "Looks like I've finally found the imperial court," the man in white said excitedly. "What a coincidence! I didn't expect you to be one of us." The two gatekeepers were also pleasantly surprised. The fact that this white-clothed man could speak to them in such a rational manner meant that he was definitely not weak. At the very least, he was at the dragon rank. The martyr's palace's strength would increase a bit more. "Then brother, hurry up and tell us what your identity is in the other world, so that we can register and report it, and we will become a family." The two guards were also excited. "My name is Li Bai, and my courtesy name is Tai Bai. I call myself Qing Lian. I'm from the Tang dynasty of the East. Please excuse me." Li Bai introduced himself shyly. "What? You're Li Bai?" Unexpectedly, when Li Bai announced his name, the two guards jumped up first. Their faces were flushed with excitement, as if they had seen their idol in their lives. "My name is Wang Xiaoming, and my courtesy name is GXN. I have a pen name called Jing Wei. I'm from Guangdong. Oh no, I'm actually from the Tang dynasty of the East. We're together." Among the guards, a very elegant and handsome man rushed to introduce himself. Turned out that this guard was the legendary Wang Jingwei. "My name is Qin Hui, and my courtesy name is Huizhi. I don't have a pen name. My ancestral home is Nanjing, Jiangsu Province. Of course, I'm also from the Tang dynasty of the East," the other man with a scrawny face said. It turned out that he was Qin Hui. If someone from the future were to see this scene, they would definitely sigh. The two most famous traders in China's history had actually gathered together. However, judging from the fact that they were assigned to the gatekeepers, these two traders must not have had a comfortable life in the martyr's palace. At the very least, they did not have any status to speak of. Although these two traders were rotten to the core, putting aside their wickedness, they were still two great scholars and great intellectuals in name and in reality. Qin Hui's calligraphy was very good, and he was the one who created the song-style characters that were widely used today. Wang Jingwei, on the other hand, was someone who had once written a poem, drawing a knife to a swift end, not letting down a young man's head. How could these two great scholars not know a peerless poet like Li Bai? To put it bluntly, Li Bai could be said to be the idol of every scholar. When scholars in ancient times saw Li Bai, it was like how brainless girls saw Yexo and TFBOY. They were all crazy fans of him. Of course, Li Bai, who was born in the Tang dynasty, had no idea what earth-shattering feats these two would achieve in the future. Seeing them flattering him and praising him sincerely, he could not help but feel close to them. After the three of them chatted enthusiastically at the entrance, Li Bai rubbed his stomach in embarrassment and said, "Bai hasn't eaten for 2 days and 2 nights. Do you have any food here?" "Yes, of course. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei nodded like chickens pecking at grains. They eagerly pulled Li Bai into the Glastonbury stronghold, saying that they would bring him to the canteen. After entering the Glastonbury stronghold, Li Bai realized that it was surprisingly large. It took him more than 20 minutes to walk from the entrance to the canteen. Judging from the distance, the stronghold was at least tens of square kilometers in size. Precisely because of the size of the stronghold, there were many empty spaces along the way. There were very few houses, and they did not encounter many people. However, to Li Bai's surprise, they only encountered a few bandits along the way. Ignoring the mindless low-level bandits, the high-level bandits all revealed looks of disdain when they saw Li Bai's group of 3. They even deliberately put some distance between them and Li Bai's group of 3. It was as if Li Bai's group of 3 was a pile of shit. Li Bai looked at Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui in confusion. The two of them immediately felt awkward. Of course, they knew why the other Yuan Ko would look at them like that. It was not that there were no Yuan Ko in the Martyr's Palace who knew what they had done. The two of them had stayed in the Martyr's Palace for a long time, and naturally, the deeds they had done had spread. In the Martyr's Palace, where most of the people were heroes, traitors like them were naturally looked down upon and had no status to speak of. Trouble. Get us some food. Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui said timidly to the window when they finally reached the canteen. What for? The chef behind the window looked at Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui coldly. It's not time to eat yet. What are you two doing here? Do you get hungry easily after doing so many bad things? No. Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui had lived in this world for hundreds of years, so they were already used to the attitude of the people in the Martyr's Palace. With a slightly flattering smile, they said, No, we have a brother who just came to this world. He hasn't eaten for 2 days, so we brought him here to eat. To be friends with you too. I'm afraid this kind of brother is not a good brother. There are still 3 hours before the meal starts. Come back to me in 3 hours to beg for food. I won't give you a fart now. The person behind the window scolded them unceremoniously. Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui were left speechless. Finally, Qin Hui mustered up his courage, closed his eyes and said, Although we have indeed done some bad things, and we are not good people, you can't insult this brother of ours today. Do you know who this brother of ours is? He's a very famous person after all. Just as Qin Hui was about to say Li Bai's name, Li Bai took the initiative to walk up to the window. He bowed respectfully to the chef behind the window and said, Chef, my name is Li Bai. If there is no food left, we can wait for a few more hours. We will leave now. After saying that, Li Bai pulled Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei away. TSK. Li Bai. What Li Bai? I am Li Bai. The chef muttered to himself. Then, his face stiffened, and he quickly stuck his head out of the window. He looked at Li Bai nervously and asked shyly, Sir, are you Li Bai? Are you the Li Bai who said, Why don't you ride the wind and fly straight for 90,000 miles? I'm sorry, Li Bai said awkwardly. I didn't write this poem for nothing. I only wrote, One day, the rock rises with the wind and flies straight for 90,000 miles. Why don't you ride the wind and fly straight for 90,000 miles? Illiterate. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei looked at the chef with disdain. The chef smiled awkwardly and quickly explained, It's all my fault. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I'm not cultured, and I haven't read any books. I just read some jokes on the internet. Please don't laugh at me, Surly. I'm Wang Shuyi, the head chef of this stronghold. Since Lord Li Bai hasn't eaten yet, I'll prepare the food for you right away. It'll be ready in 10 minutes at most. Please wait here, Lord Li Bai. After saying that, Wang Shuyi quickly went to the kitchen to prepare food for Li Bai. Have a seat. Let's sit down. Li Bai found a clean table and invited Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei, who did not dare to raise their heads, to sit down. From the looks of it, Li Bai seemed to be a veteran of this stronghold, while Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui were newcomers. Brother Gxian and Brother Gui, it seems that you two are newcomers. Since you are newcomers, I don't care what you did. Since we are fated to meet here today, we are friends. There is no need to be so reserved between friends. You and I can talk freely, Li Bai said with a smile. Sir Tai Bai. After listening to Li Bai's words, Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui's eyes were filled with emotion. If they had felt close to Li Bai before because of his reputation, now they deeply admired Li Bai from the bottom of their hearts. Soon, Wang Shi brought the heated food to the table. Li Bai, Wang Jingwei, and Qin Hui chatted as they ate. Li Bai was like a newcomer who had just arrived in this stronghold, and he carefully asked them about the situation in this world. Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui naturally told him everything they knew, and the three of them soon became more and more cheerful. Sir Li Bai, why do you still bring this human swordsman with you? Why don't you just kill him? That way you will feel more at ease, Qin Hui suggested. Murder. Li Bai's expression stiffened and he said with an ugly expression, if it was a man, I would have killed him. However, I am a chivalrous man, and I will never kill a woman. Didn't I just tell you, Sir Li Bai? This is not our world. We were born here to kill all the humans here. This is an impulse and filth that comes from the depths of our blood, Qin Hui said in a low voice. That's right, I do have such an urge, but I still have my own determination. How can I? Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei seemed to understand something when they heard Li Bai's words. They lowered their heads and looked at the woman's face. Sure enough, she was a peerless beauty. A look of understanding appeared on their faces. Although filth represented the desire to kill, sometimes lust was also a type of desire to kill. This scholar was most likely a dissolute character, and it was normal for filth to have no effect on such a beautiful woman. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei looked at each other and smiled. By this time, Li Bai was almost done with his meal, and Wang Jingwei took the initiative to suggest, Sir Li Bai has just arrived in this world, so he must be tired. Why don't you report to the palace and register your identity? After that, we can arrange a place for Sir Li to stay. All right. That's great. Li Bai nodded and replied with a smile on his face. Chapter 1197. The cafeteria was not far from the registration hall, so it didn't take them long to reach it. However, the person in charge of registration was nowhere to be found. Li Bai and the other two had no choice but to wait in the hall and continue to chat. Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui were probably moved by Li Bai's words during the meal. After talking for a while, the three of them took the initiative to tell their stories. The two of them were honest. They did not deliberately beautify themselves, nor did they vilify themselves. They just told their lives in a calm and objective manner. Then, the two of them looked at Li Bai hopefully and murmured, Lord Li Bai, do you really think we are traitors? Do you really think we are the worst villains? I see. Li Bai nodded and heaved a long sigh. Let me be honest with you. You are indeed traitors, but you are not necessarily the worst villains. What do you mean? Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui asked quickly. You betrayed the Han people and became accomplices to the invaders. Of course, you are worthy of the title of traitor. No one can wash it off. Li Bai sighed. But not necessarily the worst. You two are just poor selfish people who can't see any hope. Take you for example. Li Bai pointed to Wang Jingwei and said, when you chose to associate with the Japanese, it was not because you were stingy with your life. Otherwise, you could have escaped from China and taken refuge in other countries. The Japanese might not have been able to make things difficult for you. The reason why you made such a choice was because you were selfish and couldn't let go of your power. Secondly, you did have the future of Huaxia in your heart. You believed that the Japanese would definitely win and Huaxia would lose. You also wanted to help Huaxia keep more benefits after Huaxia was destroyed. Your heart is still with Huaxia. As for you, Li Bai looked at Qin Hui and said, you are even more pitiful than Wang Jingwei. It may have been your intention to make peace with the Golden Man, but you may not have killed Yu Fei on a groundless charge. You and Yu Fei, one is a scholar and the other is a warrior. No matter how great Yu Fei's contributions are, he may not replace you. There is no need for you to harm Yu Fei. However, Yu Fei's Yu clan army has threatened the position of His Majesty the Emperor. His Majesty the Emperor knew that killing Yu Fei would incur eternal infamy. Therefore, he needed a chamber pot to scoop up his dirty stuff. You are nothing but that chamber pot. Lord Li Bai is wise. Your Excellency Li Bai, you are really. Hearing Li Bai's words, Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui burst into tears, just like Lin Daiyu in the dream of the Red Chamber. Li Bai comforted the two of them, and only then did their tears stop. After this incident, Wang Jingwei and Qin Hui had completely become friends with Li Bai. They felt that they had become close friends with Li Bai, and the scope of their conversation broadened. They talked about the history of thousands of years ago, the present, and the mysterious Glastonbury stronghold. As the conversation deepened, under Li Bai's deliberate guidance, the topic shifted to swords. Li Bai sighed and said, I don't have many hobbies in my life, but I have 3 hobbies that I can't get rid of. Don't worry, Your Excellency Li Bai. How about I guess Your Excellency's hobbies? Qin Hui laughed. He held up 3 fingers and said, the first one must be poetry. Li Bai, the immortal of poetry. Your Excellency Li Bai is known as the immortal of poetry. I guess Your Excellency Li Bai's greatest hobby is writing poems. I guess the second one, Wang Jingwei rushed to say, the second must be wine. As the saying goes, Li Bai wrote hundreds of poems about wine. Without wine as a companion, how could Lord Li Bai write good poems? His second hobby must be wine. Then I will say the last one. Qin Hui glanced at the unconscious woman beside Li Bai. In fact, in addition to being known as the immortal of poetry, Your Excellency Li Bai is also known as the immortal of sword. Who doesn't know the name of Green Lotus Sword Fairy? Lord Li Bai, your last hobby must be the Sword Fairy. Pa. The long bench that Li Bai was sitting on suddenly began to shake violently, making a pa sound when it hit the ground. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei took a closer look and found that it was the woman that Li Bai had captured. Oh, it seems that she has woken up. Don't worry, I will knock her out again. Li Bai smiled awkwardly and slapped the back of the woman's head. The woman immediately quieted down and stopped moving. Ha. We thought that Your Excellency Li Bai was a man who had tender and protective feelings for women. I didn't expect that he would be so rude, just like us. Seeing this, Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei burst into laughter, and the atmosphere of the conversation became more lively. Both of you have guessed correctly about Bai's hobbies. They are poetry, wine, and swords. Li Bai stroked his beard and said, but the order is wrong. In fact, it's completely reversed. In my life, Bai loves swords the most. Wine comes second, and poems are something I wrote when I was bored. It can't be considered my favorite hobby. So that's how it is. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei looked at Li Bai with admiration in their eyes. The poems that had been passed down for thousands of years were written when he was bored. How high was his realm? They could not help but wonder how powerful Li Bai's favorite swordsmanship was. By the way, since we are talking about swords, I have another question. I hope you can tell me the truth, Li Bai suddenly said. Please ask, Your Excellency Li Bai. As long as I know, I will tell you everything I know. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei hurriedly said. It's like this. When Bai was in the Tang Empire, he carried a green lotus sword with him. However, he was in a hurry, so he left the sword in the Tang Empire and did not bring it with him. As a result, he did not have a suitable weapon with him. Therefore, may I ask if there are any weapon rooms in this stronghold, so that I can choose 1 or 2 good swords to use? That's easy. We don't have many things here, but we have a lot of weapons, including swords. After Your Excellency has finished registering, we will take you to the weapons room to choose a good sword. Qin Hui said loudly. He had thought that Li Bai had some outrageous request, but it turned out that he only wanted a sword. It was too easy. Sigh, it will take a while for Bai to register. Why don't you and I go to the weapons room to take a look? Li Bai said urgently. This, according to the rules, one cannot go to the weapons room before being officially registered as a member of the Martyr's Palace. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei hesitated. What kind of rule is that? According to you, Bai is a guy who has transmigrated from another world, so he will definitely join your Martyr's Palace. He does not have a second choice. It doesn't matter whether you register or not. At most, you can just say my name and see who doesn't know who I am, Li Bai said with a displeased expression. Your Excellency must be joking. The kid in charge of the weapons room is also an admirer of yours. Saying your name is more useful than anyone else. All right, let's take you to the weapons room and let you choose a good sword. Under Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei's attentive guidance, Li Bai took a few more turns before arriving in front of a rather magnificent building. Qin Hui carefully approached the door of the weapons room and said timidly, Mr. Jia Xian, we have brought our new brother to choose a weapon. Please open the door and let us in. You dog traitor, you still have the face to talk to me? Get out of here. You are not welcome here. A loud voice mercilessly berated Qin Hui from inside the weapons room. Qin Hui was as embarrassed as a dog in front of this person. Mr. Jia Xian, to tell you the truth, you can refuse to let me in, but you can't not let Mr. Tai Bai in. Qin Hui smiled bitterly. He could only say Li Bai's name. What? Mr. Tai Bai has also come to this world? The door of the weapons room was instantly pushed open, and a thin middle-aged man with a neat goatee walked out. He was stunned at first sight of Li Bai. After carefully looking at him for a while, he immediately bowed deeply to Li Bai. This bow was more than 90 degrees. Brother, please get up. Li Bai hurriedly helped Mr. Jia Xian up. Mr. Tai Bai is here, how can I dare to get up? This Mr. Jia Xian refused to straighten his back no matter what. Li Bai wanted to use brute force to help him up, but when he exerted force, he found that the other party's back was as hard as a rock. Only then did he realize that this Mr. Jia Xian was actually quite strong. Well, Mr. Jia Xian, this is the first time we have met. How do you know that I am Tai Bai Li? Li Bai asked helplessly. To be honest, Mr. Jia Xian, I am also a poet. Poets have their own unique temperament, and in this world, there is no poet who can make people feel like they are a great mountain like Mr. Tai Bai. If you are not Mr. Tai Bai, then you are Shaoling Wild Elder. Mr. Jia Xian said sincerely. Haha, I am not worthy to be compared to Brother Du Fu. You are flattering me. Li Bai laughed. The Shaoling Wild Elder that Mr. Jia Xian mentioned was Du Fu. Shaoling Wild Elder was Du Fu's title, which was the same as Li Bai's Qing Lian. Li Bai was known as the immortal poet, and Du Fu was known as the sage of poetry. One immortal and one sage were the only two peaks in the history of Chinese poetry. Mr. Jia Xian, how should I address you? Li Bai asked. I shouldn't use my lowly life to dirty Mr. Tai Bai's ears, but since Mr. Tai Bai has asked, then I can only answer. Mr. Jia Xian paused, then said in a more respectful tone, My surname is Xian, and my name is Qiji. My courtesy name is Jia Xian, and I am from Jinan, Shandong in the Southern Song Dynasty. The person I admire the most is Mr. Tai Bai. You are from the Southern Song Dynasty? Li Bai was stunned. He suddenly remembered that Qin Hui was also from the Southern Song Dynasty, and he was the Prime Minister of the Southern Song Dynasty. Thinking of how Xian Qiji had reprimanded Qin Hui like a dog, Li Bai couldn't help but feel funny. It was as if one day he suddenly found out that there was a deputy mayor reprimanding the Prime Minister like a dog. All right, let's not stay at the door. Let's go in. Li Bai took Xian Qiji's hand and entered the armory. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei looked at each other awkwardly, then followed them in. Li Bai looked around the armory and found that it was quite large. There were all kinds of weapons in all directions, including swords, spears, swords, halberds, axes, and other weapons. There were dozens of types, and there were tens of thousands of weapons in total. Even in Chang'an, such an armory would be the best armory. Mr. Jiaxian, this is why I am here. Li Bai briefly explained his purpose. After hearing it, Xian Qiji immediately said that Li Bai could take as many weapons as he wanted, and he didn't mind even if he took all of them. You're exaggerating. I'm just looking for a suitable weapon. Li Bai laughed, then led the others to a special area where swords were placed. After looking around carefully, he took out a sword that glistened with a cold light. You have a good eye, Tai Bai Master. This is the highest sword on the shelf. It's called the Cold Iron Sword, and it's made of 1,000-year-old cold iron. In terms of quality, it's comparable to a human ancient sword Maiden. Xian Qiji hurriedly explained. Cold Iron Sword. Li Bai held the sword in his hand and swung it in the air. It would have been better if he hadn't swung it, but as soon as he swung it, the sword made a crisp sound. Then, half of the sword's blade flew out and stuck into the wall of the ice room. Oh my God! Seeing this, Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei felt their legs go weak. They had never thought that Li Bai would be able to destroy a sword that was equivalent to an ancient-grade sword Maiden with a single swing of his sword. Just how terrifying was Li Bai's strength? Amazing! Xian Qiji also let out a sigh of admiration. Xian Qiji was also an expert swordsman, but if he wanted to be like Li Bai just now, he was still not strong enough. He needed to swing the sword 70 or 80 times before he could break the cold iron sword. Mr. Jiaxian, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid this sword is not suitable for me. Li Bai apologetically placed the broken hilt in Mr. Jiaxian's hand. Tai Bai Master, what do you mean? If we martial artists don't have a suitable weapon, how can we understand each other? If Tai Bai Master can find a suitable weapon, then it's not a big deal to destroy all the weapons here. Besides, it's also a blessing for this cold iron sword to be broken in your hands. Xian Qiji laughed, then opened a box at the side, took out a sword box and said, Tai Bai Master, this sword is called the True O Sword. It was forged by O Jizi, and it's equivalent to a human sword Maiden. Tai Bai Master, please give it a try. Thank you. Li Bai took the sword and swung it a few times. It was still fine, but when Li Bai swung it for the 10th time, the True O Sword broke into two, just like the cold iron sword before it. Don't worry, there's a better one here. Xian Qiji took out another sword, but it was destroyed by Li Bai on the 18th swing. In just 10 minutes, Xian Qiji found 7 or 8 swords in the armory, and they were all top-notch swords that were equivalent to a sword Maiden. However, this was the best one, and it could only withstand more than 40 swings in Li Bai's hands. Sir, please take a look at this sword. Xian Qiji was no longer as proud as before. He wiped the sweat off his forehead, then took out a golden-laid box from an extremely hidden place. He smiled bitterly and said, This bright moon sword is the best sword I have here, and it's equivalent to a human sword Maiden. Sir, please give it a try. Done. This time, Li Bai swung it over 100 times, performing a complete set of sword techniques, but the bright moon sword still showed no signs of breaking. Seeing this, Xian Qiji could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to go through the formalities to give the sword to Li Bai, he suddenly heard Li Bai shout. A vigorous and elegant sword chi soared into the sky, piercing through the roof of the armory, turning the huge armory into an open-air stadium in an instant. As the sword chi soared into the sky, the bright moon sword was also broken into two. Chapter 1198. Gone. Really gone. Xian Qiji looked at the innocent Li Bai with a bitter smile. He pulled his beard and said, Lord Tai Bai, I admit that I was boasting. I don't have a better sword than the bright moon sword. Sigh. Can't I, Li Bai, find a weapon that suits me? Hearing Xian Qiji's words, Li Bai said bitterly. Seeing Li Bai's expression, Xianqiji couldn't help but feel sorry for him. He clenched his teeth and slapped his thigh. It's not that we don't have a better sword, but this sword is different from the sword we use. Different? How can it be different? Hearing Xianqiji's words, Li Bai couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. As long as it's a sword, it's the same to Bai. This is indeed not an ordinary sword. It's the sword used by those sword-bearers. Xianqiji said helplessly. The sword used by women like the one in my hand? Li Bai tested the human woman in his hand and nodded. Bai has fought with them before. Their swords are indeed very strange. They can actually transform into human forms. At first, I thought they were monsters, but I didn't expect them to be sword-bearers. Yes, the swords of those sword-bearers are indeed very strange. Until now, we still haven't figured out why these swords can transform into women's forms. However, one thing is for sure. We can't use the swords of these sword-bearers, Xianqiji said. Why? Aren't they all swords? Why can't we use them? Li Bai asked in confusion. The sword-bearer's sword has a natural sense of rejection towards us. Once we hold the sword-bearer's sword in our hands, we will feel a burning pain in our palms. Moreover, there will be an inexplicable sense of oppression in our hearts, as if someone had placed a large stone in our hearts. If we hold it for a long time, we will feel like vomiting. Then, we will feel dizzy and drowsy. Finally, we will faint. Xianqiji pulled his beard and shook his head. If the sword-bearers could really be used, then I would have used it long ago. I wouldn't be guarding the entire armory. If that's the case, then this sword-bearer is really an existence that is our natural nemesis. Li Bai sighed in admiration. After thinking for a while, he couldn't help but say, "No, if you don't let Bai experience it personally, Bai will feel uncomfortable all over. No, Bai must touch the swords of those sword-bearers." Alright, we can understand how you feel. When I first came to this world, I heard about swords and couldn't hold back my curiosity, so I had to experience it. It's good for you to experience it, Tai Bai Gonggong. In the future, when you meet the sword-bearers of the virtual human, you'll be prepared, Xianqiji said without hesitation. Very good. Bai can't wait any longer, Li Bai said excitedly. I didn't expect Tai Bai Gong to have such a childish side. This is really an eye-opener for me. Xianqiji couldn't help but laugh when he saw Li Bai's performance. However, because of this, Xianqiji felt that Li Bai in front of him had become more and more vivid. This was the appearance of a real person, not the thin words in the history textbook. But that place isn't like my armory. I can make a decision with just one word, so I have to register it in the hall. Otherwise, I really can't bring Master Tai Bai into that place. Xianqiji said with some difficulty. It's okay. We have to register sooner or later. Let's go register first, Li Bai said with a smile. The four of them returned to the hall of the stronghold. Unfortunately, the person in charge of registration in the hall still hadn't appeared. The four of them had been waiting there for almost 2 hours. When it was past 2:00 in the afternoon, the person in charge of registration, Yuan Ko, slowly walked into the hall. "Oh Henry, what are you doing? You're not at your post during working hours. You made us wait for so long." Seeing a blonde and blue-eyed foreigner, the grumpy Xianqiji couldn't suppress his anger and scolded the foreigner. "What's the hurry? Are you in a hurry to meet God?" O. Henry stretched himself lazily and glanced at Xianqiji with his small eyes. "Don't laugh at me. You have Mr. Tang behind you, and I have Mr. Tesla behind me. Anyway, both of them are not here today. You can't do anything to me." "You!" Xianqiji was so angry that his hair almost stood on end. "Call me again. If you do, I'll leave right now. Who is afraid of you?" O. Henry was about to leave, but Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei hurriedly stopped him. After a lot of good words, O. Henry finally calmed down a little. He sat down again, opened the registration software on the computer, and asked Li Bai lazily, "Tell me, what's your name? Which era and country? What are your abilities? What's your level?" Li Bai, from the Song Dynasty. "I can recite poems, drink wine, and play with swords. As for my level, I don't know," Li Bai said grumpily. "How can I do that? If I don't know my level, how can I register?" O. Henry laughed and then looked at Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei. "You two, do you know what level this Li Bai is? This? Nether level? Or meteor level?" Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei were at a loss as to what to do. No matter how they looked at it, the person who had broken a sword that was equivalent to a famed sword maiden should be at least a nether grade Yuanko or above. However, they were unable to confirm what his exact rank was. They would have to fight a Yuanko of the same rank to find out. Just as the two of them were in deep thought, Li Bai could no longer hold it in and said, "Bai defeated an ancient sword wielder. You can just treat Bai as an ancient sword wielder. Oh, that's the nether level." O. Henry did not hesitate. After hearing Li Bai's words, he immediately registered Li Bai as a nether level. Qin Hui and the others behind Li Bai looked at each other in confusion. This Lord Li Bai was at least a nether level Yuan Ko. How did he become a trash nether level Yuan Ko in the blink of an eye? This O. Henry was also an idiot. Did he not know that a nether level Yuan Ko was a Yuan Ko without any intelligence? For Yuan Ko like Li Bai to speak so smoothly and logically, he should at least be a dragon level Yuan Ko. In fact, how could O. Henry not know that Li Bai could not be a rat level bandit? However, judging from Li Bai's name and background, this newcomer would definitely become Guan Yu's subordinate. Therefore, O. Henry gave him the rank of rat level. He could take this opportunity to disgust Li Bai and vent his anger for his master, Tesla. "It's fine." Li Bai turned around and asked the three indignant people behind him to calm down. He smiled and said, "I don't know about levels and I don't care. As long as you can help me find a good sword." "That's right. Since Lord Li Bai has registered, let's set off now." Under Xian Chiji's lead, the four of them began to walk deeper into the stronghold. The place we are going to next has more than 600 virtual human sword maidens, ranging from ancient sword maidens to immortal sword maidens. They are all hidden there. I guarantee that you will be able to find the sword you like, Xian Chiji explained to Li Bai as they walked. "Mr. Jiaxian, what kind of place are you talking about? Why have we never heard of such a place?" After hearing Xian Chiji's words, Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei shouted in dissatisfaction before Li Bai could say anything. "Humph! You two traitors! What right do you have to know such important things?" Xian Chiji glared at the two of them disdainfully. The two of them knew that they were in the wrong, so they could only smile and swallow their grievances. "By the way, I heard from these two brothers that sword maidens are the most precious thing to humans. They also have the ability to return to the sword pavilion on their own. Normally, we can only get broken sword maidens or watch them fly away. Why are there so many sword maidens in this stronghold?" Li Bai asked curiously. "I'm not too sure either. After all, I'm not very interested in what happens there," Xian Chiji said. "I only know that a few years ago, there were only a few broken swords there. There were only 3 intact sword maidens. However, a few years ago, more than 600 sword maidens suddenly appeared there. I heard that someone in our martyr's palace stole them. Because the sword maidens can't enter the main hall of the martyr's palace, they were temporarily stored in our stronghold. After all, our stronghold has the most kings and is the safest and most reliable." "I see." Li Bai nodded thoughtfully. As they spoke, they arrived at the place that Xian Chiji mentioned. Li Bai looked up and saw a simple and unadorned monastery standing in front of him. Although it looked like it had weathered the hardships of time, it was still intact. "This is the Glastonbury Monastery," Xian Chiji said with a smile. "I heard that when our stronghold was first established, the Glastonbury Monastery was the only place. However, a few hundred years ago this place was very lively. After a few hundred years of development, the scope of our stronghold grew larger and larger. The rest of our brothers gradually dispersed and lived in different places. This core area became deserted and was used to store some treasures. Who is it? What are you doing here? When Li Bai and the others approached the Glastonbury Monastery, a mysterious voice suddenly came from all directions. It was impossible to figure out where the voice was coming from. It's me. Hearing this voice, Xian Qiji replied coldly. Immediately, a void door appeared in front of Li Bai and the others. A middle-aged man wearing fur and carrying a large bow jumped out of the void. From this, it could be seen that this person with the bow was at least a U-level Yuan Ko. This U-level Yuan Ko also looked at Xian Qiji coldly. Sparks flew in their eyes, and they looked like they wanted to kill each other. Seeing this, Qin Hui had no choice but to jump out. He hugged the man with the bow and said with a flattering smile, "Master Zhibi, please don't lower yourself to his level. Didn't our great song fall in your hands? Why are you still holding a grudge against a guy who destroyed our country?" It turned out that the man with the bow and arrows was Zhibi. He was the most powerful archer in Mongolia and one of Temujin's most trusted generals. Zhibi was known as the god of archery. In terms of archery, even Huang Zhong was no match for him. Otherwise, Zhibi would not have been qualified to be a U-level Yuan Ko. The Mongolians, where Zhibi was from, later destroyed the southern Song, where Xian Qiji was from. Since there was a feud between the two, it was only natural that they would stare at each other like mortal enemies. Hearing Qin Hui's words, Zhibi snorted coldly and stopped staring at Xian Qiji. He asked coldly, "What are you doing here? This is not a place you should be." "Bai is looking for a sword," Li Bai said before Qin Hui could speak. "Looking for a sword?" Zhibi squinted at Li Bai, his face full of disbelief. "If you are looking for a sword, go to his armory. Why are you here?" "I couldn't find a suitable sword in the armory. I heard that there are many good swords hidden in the Glastonbury Monastery, so I came here to see if I could find a suitable weapon for myself," said Rode. You want to use the sword of the sword-bearer as your own weapon? Are you courting death?" Zhibi glanced at Li Bai and said to Qin Hui, "Didn't you tell him how dangerous it is to use the sword of the sword-bearer?" "I did, but Lord Li Bai didn't care. He just wanted to give it a try," Qin Hui said. "Give it a try?" Zhibi walked around Li Bai and asked, "What level are you?" "Mouse level," Li Bai said calmly. "Ha ha ha ha." Zhibi laughed wildly. Good. Since you are a mouse level, you can give it a try. I won't stop you." "Thank you." Li Bai cupped his hands at Zhibi and was about to enter the Glastonbury Monastery. "Wait." Before Li Bai could take a few steps, Zhibi stopped him again. Zhibi sneered and said, "You can go in, but you can't bring the woman in your hand. Don't think that I can't recognize her. She is not one of us, but a virtual person. P.S. I would like to add an unexpected setting here. Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace has always regarded himself as a human, so he naturally thinks of himself as a human. It is impossible for him to refer to the indigenous people of this world as humans. Otherwise, it would be very awkward for Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace. Therefore, I have added a setting here. The humans of the Martyr's Palace only refer to themselves as humans, while real humans are called virtual people, which means that they are not real humans. This setting only applies to Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace. Yuan Ko of other forces are not affected. It's only natural for her to stay here. Li Bai nodded after hearing Zhibi's words, but he immediately shook his head and said, "However, if we really leave this woman here, I'm afraid that when Bai comes out, this woman will no longer be Bai. She will be snatched away by someone else." After saying that, Li Bai looked down and saw a tent protruding out of Zhibi's leather pant. He could not help but sneer. "What are you talking about? I'm already doing you a favor by letting you in. Don't you want to repay my kindness?" Jabi said, holding an arrow in his hand as if he was ready to attack at any time. Don't. We are brothers, and we are on the same side. You can't fight. Qin Hui hurriedly stood between the two of them and tried to persuade Li Bai with a bitter smile. Master Li Bai, it's just a woman. Don't hurt our friendship. Besides, we don't need to sleep with a woman all the time. At most, you can use her for a day, and Master Jabi will use her for a day. You can take a break and recharge your strength. Why do you have to fight? There are many examples of people dying because of women in this world. All right. Li Bai hesitated for a while and sighed. All right. Bai can agree to let him use this woman for a few days, but not now. Her virginity must be Bai's. Bai will only feel safe if he keeps her by his side. Sure. I'm a Mongolian, and Mongolians don't care about virginity. I'll give it to you. Jabi nodded his head and said to Li Bai proudly, Then bring this woman and come with me. I'd like to see how cowardly you are in front of the swords of those sword-bearers. After saying that, Jabi directly entered Glastonbury Abbey. Li Bai followed him, leaving Qin Hui and the other two standing outside. Since Jabi did not allow them to enter, they were not qualified to do so. Hey! Master Li Bai said that he has 3 hobbies, and swords rank first. Now it seems that Master Li Bai was lying. In fact, women are his hobbies, Qin Hui said with a wretched smile. Wang Jingwei and Xian Qiji did not say anything, but they both smiled knowingly at the same time. Chapter 1199. After entering the Glastonbury Monastery, Jeeb led them through a series of winding medieval-style corridors and arrived in front of a large door made of pure copper. Copper was a very precious material in ancient times and modern times. It was obvious how important the thing inside the door was to be made of copper. Wait! Just when Li Bai was about to push the door open, Jeeb suddenly blocked Li Bai's way with one hand. What's wrong? Li Bai looked at the hand in front of him and asked with a displeased expression. I forgot to tell you just now. Let me have a look at this woman's face first. I, Jabi, am also a handsome man in the prairie. Ordinary women are not worthy of me. If she's too ugly, you and this woman can get out of here, Jabi said proudly. Look. Li Bai did not waste time talking to Jeeb. He took a look at the woman in his hand. Jeeb's mouth watered after he saw her face. He exclaimed, She's so beautiful. She's just like the bright moon on the prairie. Even the pearl of our great Han dynasty, Princess Huajing, is not as beautiful as her. All right, since you've seen her, it's time to let Bai in. Li Bai only gave Jeeb a glance before he put the woman down again. No problem. Jeeb rolled his eyes. You go in alone. I'll guard this woman. Why? Li Bai looked at Jeeb warily and asked. Don't forget that the woman in your hand is a virtual person with a sword. This hall is full of sword maidens. If this woman wakes up and does something to the sword maidens in the hall and loses them, you'll be the sinners of the martyr's palace. You should be more vigilant, Jeeb said matter-of-factly. In fact, what he said made sense. In other words, he had inadvertently revealed the truth. You make it sound so nice. Bai, I think you want to have sex with this woman first when Bai goes in and throw a broken shoe at me, right? Li Bai said, as if he had seen through Jeeb's plan. I don't want to talk nonsense with you anymore. Fine, let's just be honest. A woman's first time was just a membrane. Took a lot of effort to poke it, and it also brought bad luck to her. If it weren't for the fact that I haven't tasted a woman for a few months, I wouldn't even bother to snatch this unlucky thing from you. But this woman is really too beautiful, so beautiful that I can't help it. If you know what's good for you, hand over this woman. I'll return her to you after playing with her for a few days. I promise to keep her alive. Jabi was indeed a Mongolian. He was not good at lying, so he spoke bluntly. What if Bai says no? Li Bai squinted at Jeeb. Then I have no choice but to invite you out so that we can have a good fight. Jabi waved his hand and a void gate appeared beside him. At this moment, Jeeb could push Li Bai into the gate of the void with a gentle push. Is that so? Unfortunately, you won't have the chance. Li Bai smiled and waved his hand. A second void gate appeared beside Li Bai. In the blink of an eye, Li Bai carried the woman into the void gate and disappeared without a trace. He's actually a universe-level expert like me. Upon seeing this scene, Ling, who had been arrogant and ferocious just a moment ago, and Jabi's aura instantly stagnated. Jabi had never expected that this middle-aged man, who looked a little down and out, was actually a universe-level Yuan Ko like him, and had the ability to open Void Gate. Where did that guy go through the Void Gate? After being shocked for a while, Jabi began to think about Li Bai's whereabouts. Fortunately, Jabi wasn't stupid and quickly figured it out. This person must have gone through the Void Gate into the hall. At this thought, Jabi immediately pushed open the gate aggressively. Hey, since we are both universe-level experts, we can talk things over. Don't ruin the harmony in the Martyr's Palace. At most, I'll play with you for a few days and then you and I will play for a few days. Let's have a friendly conversation. Compared to his previous attitude, Jabi was still a little overbearing, but he wasn't as unquestionable as before. After all, if two universe-level Yuan Ko were to fight here, half of the stronghold would be destroyed in their battle. Therefore, Jabi decided to discuss with Li Bai and see if they could take turns to play for a few days. However, as soon as Jabi finished speaking, he saw a scene that made him dizzy. The woman who had been unconscious in Li Bai's hand was now looking at the sword ladies in the hall with great interest. Meanwhile, Li Bai stood at the door and welcomed Jabi with a big smile. What's going on? Let me help you. Let's catch that woman quickly and don't let her touch the sword ladies here. The confused Jabi thought that the woman had suddenly woken up and escaped Li Bai's control, so he wanted to help Li Bai subdue her. Hey, brother Jabi, since she wants to see it, let her have a look. How about we have a good chat here? Li Bai was still smiling. You guys. Jabi realized that there was something wrong with this Yuan Ko named Li Bai. He rushed to Li Bai's side and was about to catch the woman in the hall. Brother Li Bai, thank you for your hard work. The woman shouted. No problem. Since it's your request, Sister Shirhan, I'll definitely satisfy you. Li Bai laughed and moved to the left, blocking Jabi who was trying to break out of the encirclement. Yes, the human beauty that Li Bai had carried here and was coveted by several perverts was naturally the protagonist, Gu Xianyuan. You guys are really in cahoots. Jabi yelled. You're so stupid that you didn't realize it until now. Li Bai mocked him without any hesitation. I'm going to kill you. Jabi shouted angrily and started fighting with Li Bai with his bare fists. At the entrance of the hall, the two U-level Yuan Ko were fighting fiercely. On the other side of the hall, Gu Shirhan was looking at the sword lady in front of her with joy. Her eyes were filled with surprise. It seemed that her plan had succeeded. What's going on? Why are you in there? Where's Miss Gu Shirhan? Let's turn the clock back an hour or two. When it was almost 11 o'clock in the morning, Dragon King Aorun's mouth was dry from all the talking and he no longer had the energy to speak. At that moment, the maglev flying car that had been parked on the platform finally opened its door. However, West Sea Dragon King Aorun was extremely disappointed and confused. There was no sign of Gu Shirhan in the maglev flying car. Only Gu Shirhan's friend, a weak ancient sword wielder, walked out of the maglev flying car. That was why Aorun had asked that question. The other top experts present, as well as the audience, were also baffled. After waiting for an hour, this person had actually appeared. What the hell is going on? Where's my opponent? Seeing this scene, Long Shi Jiandi also flew down from the sky and asked Lu Shihua. I'm sorry, Miss Shirhan had an accident. Lu Shihua said with a sad look. In fact, Miss Shirhan was also seriously injured yesterday, but she didn't say it. She endured it all night, which led to an attack this morning. She could only temporarily enter the medical cabin, and she hasn't come out yet. Really? Long Jiendi frowned. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You told us to prepare early. It happened suddenly. When I was about to go out this morning, she suddenly fell down. Before she was completely unconscious, Miss Sherhan repeatedly told me not to use the communication device to report the news. It was impolite, and I must carry her medical cabin to explain to His Majesty Long Jiendi. Lu Shihua said with a slight sob. I see. Hearing Lu Shihua's words, Long Jiendi's ugly face suddenly relaxed a lot. That's not right. Ao Run, the Dragon King of the West Sea, couldn't take it anymore. He interjected. If that's the case, why didn't you come out of the maglev flying car to tell us in the beginning? Aren't you just wasting our time? This. Lu Shihua hesitated for a while and said, It's all because the Dragon King blocked the door and said some nonsense. I was afraid and didn't dare to come out. Ahem. Ao Run quickly coughed a few times, which was a little embarrassing. Since Long Jiendi's opponent is injured and needs treatment, we won't disturb you today. We'll go first. Seeing this scene, Tai Muzhen, who was sitting in the sky, got up directly and was ready to leave. The audience also sighed helplessly and began to pack up their things, ready to leave. Wait. Lu Shihua hurriedly said loudly, The medical cabin shows that Miss Sherhan is just exhausted and lacks rest. She only needs to replenish her physical strength. In an hour at most, the medical cabin can be opened, and Miss Sherhan can come out to fight. Just wait for an hour, right? The Dragon Lion Sword Emperor asked. Lu Shihua quickly took out a medical pod from the maglev flying car. Everyone looked through the glass and saw that Gu Sherhan was indeed lying peacefully in the medical pod. Her chest was heaving up and down, and it was obvious that she had fallen into a deep sleep. On the display screen of the medical cabin, it was clearly written that there were only 58 minutes left for the treatment. Well, in that case, I will wait for another hour. Long Jiendi glanced at the medical cabin and flew directly back to the golden dragon chair in the air. It's only an hour, let's wait. The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas looked at each other and sat back in their seat. Guan Yu and others did not speak, but they showed their choice with practical actions. This was a shocking battle, and no one present wanted to miss it. If the game really started in an hour, would they run back to Glastonbury now, rest for a few minutes, and then come here again? That was a little too stupid. Time ticked by bit. The peak experts sitting high up in the sky remained motionless. Their eyes were fixed on their noses and their noses were focused on their hearts, looking like experts. However, a small portion of the audience had already dispersed. Many of them had their own things to do and did not have the time to wait for another hour. The audience in front of the TV was even more straightforward. They changed the channel directly. They were not interested in watching an hour of TV commercials. As a result, the live broadcast, which had a ratings of more than 80%, fell to less than 4% in an instant. However, when it was close to 12 noon, the ratings slowly rose again, reaching more than 70%. When the bell rang at 12 noon, the experts sitting high in the air finally put down their airs and looked at the medical cabin on the platform expectantly. However, the medical cabin did not move. What's going on? Why is there still more than an hour? Temujin's eyes were sharp. He directly saw the small words displayed on the medical cabin in the air hundreds of meters away. As a result, Temujin was surprised to find that the treatment time shown on the medical cabin had changed to 1 hour and 7 minutes. Now, after an hour, the treatment time had not been shortened, but increased by 9 minutes. Wasn't this strange? Let me see. Lu Shihua quickly moved to the side of the medical cabin and then quickly reported to Long Jiendi, Your Majesty, the medical record in the medical cabin said that Miss Sherhan's muscle tissue was wrong. Miss Sherhan's muscles are far beyond the normal female muscles, so the original judgment of the treatment time was wrong. Now it is the corrected time. The Dragon Lion Sword Emperor didn't say anything else. There was nothing strange about this. The estimated treatment time of the medical pod was just like the weather forecast on a TV station. It was never 100% accurate. Occasionally, it was very normal to want to predict 1 or 2 hours more, or 1 or 2 hours less. There was nothing strange about it. Damn it! Why do we have to wait for more than an hour? Temujin cursed. If Temujin doesn't want to wait, you can leave. Longsure will give you a ride. Longsure Jiendi said to Temujin with half-opened eyes. His tone was eager for Temujin to leave as soon as possible. Humph! I won't leave. I want to see the strength of this woman with my own eyes. Temujin said. In this way, after another hour, the ratings dropped from 70% to 3%, and then rose from 3% to 60%. When it was 1:10 in the afternoon, the treatment time of the medical cabin gradually reached 0. Suddenly, the time changed to 1 hour and 32 minutes. At this time, all the top experts were paying attention to the time change on the medical cabin when the treatment time was about to end. They were a little worried about whether the treatment time would change again. As a result, the change really happened. This was really annoying. What's going on this time? Temujin asked angrily. Lu Shihua quickly operated the medical cabin, then said with a wry smile, just now, the medical cabin carried out a second scan after the treatment and found that there is a hidden injury in the bone that was not discovered. This hidden injury must be treated. The Dragon Lion Sword Emperor uttered and then said indifferently, since we still have an hour and a half, let's eat first. Longsure Jiendi waved his hand, and a table of delicious food was placed in the air. Well, this old man has long been tired of eating the delicious food of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. It's just the right time to taste the food of you humans. The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, who were impatient, sat directly at the table. Impatiently, they continued to eat to pass the time. Damn it, eat, eat. Temujin, Guan Yu, and Tesla all smiled bitterly and sat down at the table together. And so, an extremely rare scene in history appeared. 8 of the world's top experts, and they belonged to 3 different camps. The 2 camps usually fought each other to the death, and wanted nothing more than to completely annihilate each other. But now, they were sitting at the same table and eating harmoniously. This scene could be said to be a scene that was rarely seen throughout the ages. Immediately, the reporters and the media pointed their cameras at the banquet in the sky. Just the photos of the banquet were enough to make up for the past few hours of their bitter wait. Chapter 1200. These top experts did not have anything else in common, but they all had one thing in common, and that was they were all big eaters. A table of delicious food that was usually enough for 20 people to eat was eaten clean by these people in less than 5 minutes. It couldn't be helped. To some extent, strength and appetite were directly proportional. With a wave of Longsure Jiendi's big sleeve, the leftovers on the table disappeared, and with another wave, a new table of delicious food appeared. In this way, a full 9 tables of wine and dishes were replaced, and the crowd barely looked full. They no longer wolfed down their food, but slowly ate and drank. I say, Longsure, your dimensional pocket is well prepared. You've actually prepared 9 tables of dishes. Do you usually eat 9 tables of dishes? After eating to his heart's content, Temujin rudely wiped his beard with a tablecloth and asked somewhat strangely. When everyone heard this, they felt that it was indeed a little strange. No one would prepare so many delicious dishes in their dimensional pocket. It felt as if Longsure Jiendi had already known that they would come. What are you looking at me for? Do you really think I am a fool? Longsure Jiendi sneered. Yesterday, Lord Ao Run and Lord Guan Yu also secretly hid to the side to watch the fight. If I hadn't guessed that you would be interested in coming to meddle, I'm afraid that my London would have been destroyed in your hands. Ha! Everyone smiled awkwardly. It seemed that this was indeed the case. There's still something wrong. Tesla narrowed his eyes. It stands to reason that this fight, Long Sure, will be over in 10 minutes at most. Long Sure, it seems that you don't need to prepare this table of dishes at all. Did you think in advance that you would fight with her for more than 2 hours? The wine glass in Long Sure Jiandi's hand swayed a bit, and half of the wine in the glass spilled out. After that, the Dragon Lion Sword Emperor quietly finished the wine that he had prepared and left the table. He returned to his throne and didn't say anything else. Not good. I didn't expect Long Sure Jiandi himself to think that he would fight with that woman for more than 2 hours. Doesn't this mean that the woman can really fight evenly with an Emperor sword-level swordsman for a long time? Once such a woman becomes an immortal sword-level swordsman, it would be terrible. Long Sure Jiandi's reaction suddenly made the other Yuan Ko's at the table turn pale with fright. This detail of Long Sure Jiandi fully revealed the horror of his opponent, which also made these Yuan Ko's curious about the woman lying in the medical pod. They secretly decided that this time, they must understand the ability of that woman. When the whole table was removed, it was already 2:40 in the afternoon. As a result, something unexpected happened again. The treatment time in the medical pod changed again, and the treatment countdown increased again. This time, it increased by 2 hours, and the treatment could only be completed after 4:40. Your Majesty, this time. Lu Shihua smiled bitterly and prepared to report the change in the medical pod. Unexpectedly, Long Sure Jiandi waved his hand and said, "Forget it, I'm not interested in listening. I'll wait for 2 more hours." After Long Sure Jiandi finished speaking, he took out a game console from his dimensional pocket and held it in his hand. Long Sure Jiandi actually began to play the game directly. F***CK. It seems that His Majesty has also been driven mad by this woman, otherwise he would not play games in public. Seeing this scene, the audience in London said with a wry smile. At the same time, they picked up their personal terminals and took pictures of Long Sure Jiandi. Jiandi playing a game console. Such a picture, in terms of preciousness, was not necessarily less precious than a picture of 8 top experts eating together. Strange. Why did His Majesty put on the helmet and play Sword Maiden online? Isn't this much more fun than any old-fashioned game console? A spectator saw this scene and suddenly asked in puzzlement, "Are you stupid? If he put on the helmet and entered the game, wouldn't he know nothing about the outside world? What if he was sneak-attacked by those Yuan Ko's? So His Majesty can only play the game console." A spectator next to him explained. F***CK. I'm not serving you anymore. Temujin once again wanted to get up and leave, but he was held back by Guan Yu, who was next to him. Guan Yu said coldly, "You can leave, but you have wasted more than 3 hours of waiting." F***CK. Temujin was so angry that he lashed his whip directly into the sea. As a result, a huge wave tens of meters high was set off on the sea, submerging the entire coast, and the spectators who stayed on the shore were also drenched. If it were not for the timely rescue of the surrounding swordsmen, it was estimated that some of the spectators would have died directly under Temujin's wave. With this big wave, Temujin also vented the anger in his heart. After shouting at the shore, "Give me Long Sure's thing too!" he sat back down. The swordsman did not dare to be negligent. Without saying a word, someone immediately rushed over with a brand new game console. This person was also clever. He directly brought 7 game consoles, regardless of whether these top Yuan Ko's had the childlike innocence of playing games. The 7 top Yuan Ko's took the game console hesitantly. Except for Temujin, the others were somewhat resistant at first. But because the process of waiting was too boring, these top Yuan Ko's also hesitantly began to play. As the game progressed, all kinds of strange expressions appeared on their faces. After 2 hours had passed, these top Yuan Ko's were still not satisfied. Even after 2 hours had passed, these top bandits were still not satisfied. They wished that they could wait a little longer so that they could have more fun. At this time, the countdown timer on the medical bay had reached about 1 minute left. Everyone stared at the timer in unison, and they had an inexplicable bad feeling in their hearts. Do we have to wait again this time? Although the game console is quite fun, it's going to be dark if we wait any longer. In the end, just as they feared, when there were only a few seconds left, the countdown once again jumped, and this time it jumped for a full 3 hours. F***ck, I don't want to watch anymore, I will kill you first. Temujin could not stand it any longer. The whip in his hand directly rolled towards the medical bay on the platform. No! Long Shurjiendi immediately tried to stop Temujin's whip, but Guan Yu, in the blink of an eye, shuttled through the void and stopped Long Shurjiendi's sword mistress. It seemed that this warrior saint had had enough and was determined to kill Gu Shirhan. It's over. When the few remaining spectators saw Gu Shirhan's medical bay split in half by Temujin's horsewhip, they immediately wailed. This was the most powerful spirit sword-level swordsman in human history. Could it be that she died under Temujin's whip? But faintly, there was a trace of pleasure in the hearts of these spectators. F***ck. This woman who had made them waste most of their lives was finally dead. This was really cool. No, no. Temujin, who had just split Gu Shirhan's medical bay in half, suddenly shouted. With a circle of his whip in the sea, he rolled the 2 broken corpses in front of him. After taking a look, his face suddenly changed. He immediately threw the 2 corpses in front of Long Shurjiendi and shouted, Long Shurjiendi, you dare to play with us! What's going on? The dragon kings of the 4 seas immediately came over. After taking a look, they, like Temujin, were so angry that their dragon horns became crooked and they shouted, Long Shurjiendi, what the hell is going on? Don't tell us that you were also deceived by this woman? What do you mean deceived? Long Shurjiendi's performance was extremely calm, and he said indifferently, Humph, this is not a woman's corpse, it's clearly 2 pieces of silicone gel. You actually dare to play with us with silicone gel dolls. Temujin rushed over like the wind. The camera quickly focused on the 2 parts of the body suspended in the air. People found that the 2 parts of the body looked exactly the same as Gu Shirhan's, but they were solid. There were no bones or internal organs at all. What kind of person was this? It was clearly a doll made of silicone gel. Retreat. In the sky, Long Shurjiendi saw that things could not be concealed any longer. He immediately shouted, and immediately countless swordsmen rushed out from all directions. But these swordsmen did not attack the Yuan Ko, but covered the audience and reporters who were still on the shore at this time. It could be seen that this retreat had been prepared for a long time. In just a flash, the retreat was carried out in an orderly manner. Don't let these humans go. The Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace instinctively wanted to control some humans, or kill them to vent his anger, or use them to threaten Long Shurjiendi. But Long Shurjiendi was already prepared and directly blocked it. The 2 sides fought for a while in the air. Long Shurjiendi was certainly not a match for the 3 flood-level Yuan Ko, but it was not a problem for him to entangle them. When Guan Yu got rid of the entanglement and wanted to attack, all the humans had safely retreated into the dimensional wall. Even if these flood-level Yuan Ko had great ability, they would not be able to destroy this super-dimensional wall in a few months. Long Shur, you villain, what the hell are you planning? Guan Yu was helpless and could only question the only human beside him, Long Shurjiendi. I don't have any idea. I just miss everyone and hope that we can get together here and have a meal. Long Shurjiendi said lightly. Not good, this is a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. I'm afraid our stronghold is in danger, let's go. Temujin was, after all, an emperor. Although he did not know what the real intention of Long Shurjiendi was, he was sure that his stronghold was empty at this time, and the human's goal was likely to be to sneak attack his stronghold. That's right, let's go. When the Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace heard Temujin's words, He directly broke away from the entanglement with Long Shurjiendi and began to quickly retreat in the direction of the Glastonbury stronghold. But what the three Yuan Ko never expected was that before they could fly more than 10 kilometers away, they were blocked by an invisible wall. Whether they wanted to fly over or pass through the Void Gate, these flood-level Yuan Ko could never leave the shackles of this wall. This is the dimensional wall. There's a second dimensional wall system here. In the end, they were the Yuan bandits who had fought against the humans for hundreds of years. They immediately recognized that the dimensional barrier blocking their way was the human race's dimensional barrier. Unless one used brute force to break it, or used the human's own quantum teleportation array, it was impossible to pass through it. No Yuan bandit in the world could directly pass through the human race's dimensional barrier. Although London's super-dimensional wall system was large, its scope was fixed. In the past hundreds of years of struggle, Yuan Ko of the Martyr's Palace had a clear understanding of the size and scope of London's super-dimensional wall system. They were sure that the entire battlefield was not within London's super-dimensional wall system. There was only one explanation for that. The Londoners had set up a second, much smaller dimensional wall system here. Additionally, when they arrived in the morning, the smaller dimensional wall system was still shut down. It was only activated after they arrived that it was activated. It took about 10 minutes to activate a small dimensional wall system, during which it would be accompanied by a lot of strange movements. Under normal circumstances, they would be able to discover these strange movements and escape from the nearby area. They didn't know if the Dragon Lion Sword Emperor had secretly ordered someone to activate the miniature dimensional wall system while everyone was eating or playing video games. As a result, they didn't notice the strange movements that were very obvious. Long Shur, what the hell do you want to do? Do you want to kill the three of us? Speaking up to this point, Guan Yu and the other two felt a chill on their neck. This Long Shurjiendi had deliberately not set up this inescapable net. Apart from wanting to kill the three of them, what other purpose did he have? Moreover, Guan Yu and the other two looked at the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas. Recalling that the Dragon King of the West Sea, Ao Run, had just said that he wanted to fight side by side with humans, their hearts became even more terrified. Could it be that the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had already turned to the side of humans in advance? They had not appeared here to watch the battle, but had premeditated with Long Shurjiendi in advance, preparing to join hands and kill the three of them? If the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were really working with Long Shurjiendi thinking of this, Guan Yu and the other two did not dare to continue thinking about it. It was very likely that they would all die inside this dimensional wall system. Don't misunderstand, we are not in cahoots with Long Shurjiendi. We were also deceived. Seeing the puzzled look in the eyes of Guan Yu and the other two, the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas immediately said in unison. Hearing the words of the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, Guan Yu and the other two suddenly felt relieved. At this time, they had already become turtles in a jar. If the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were really conspiring with humans, then there was no need to continue acting, they could just directly take action. It seemed that the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were indeed kept in the dark just like them. Long Shurjiendi, what do you want to do? Just say it, don't beat around the bush. Are you still Jiendi or not? Temujin asked loudly. He could not understand. If the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were not conspiring with humans, then what was their purpose? As I said, I just want to ask you to stay here a little longer. After Long Shurjiendi finished speaking, he once again bowed to the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas and said, "Today's matter was really helpless. I did not want to involve the four Dragon Kings, but the Dragon Kings came uninvited. Today's mistake was completely unintentional, and I have no intention of targeting the four Dragon Kings. After this matter is over, this junior will apologize to the four Dragon Kings." The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas smiled bitterly at the same time. It turned out that they were the unlucky ones who had been caught in the crossfire, and it was their own fault. What else could they say? With that, Long Shi Jiandi waved his hand and flew directly out of the small dimensional wall. Then, countless sword-bearers rushed out of the city of London, put their arms on the collector near the dimensional wall, and poured the sword essence in their bodies into the small dimensional wall. I just thought that the reason why they trapped us was to take the opportunity to send a large army to attack our stronghold, but now it seems that's not the case. Seeing the appearance of these sword-bearers who had been infused with sword essence, Temujin breathed a sigh of relief. With so many sword-bearers used to infuse sword essence into the small dimensional wall, it seemed that the humans had no other forces to attack their stronghold. But in this case, what was the real purpose of these humans? Temujin really could not figure it out. Chapter 1201. What's your purpose? Zhibi asked the same question on the other side. Zhibi was having a hard time being pestered by Li Bai. He had the urge to vomit blood. As an archer, he could only display his true combat power in a vast space. However, once the battlefield was confined to this small monastery, Zhibi's bow could not be used to its full potential no matter how strong he was. He could only let Li Bai drag him to the door and watch as Gu Xianyuan kept putting the sword ladies that were placed in the hall into her dimensional pocket. Can't you tell? Of course, we're taking back what belongs to us humans. Gu Xianyuan squinted. He saw a sword maiden with 4 wings. It was obviously the 4-winged seraphim sword that Lu Shihua needed. Gu Xianyuan kept the sword maiden into his dimensional pocket. He had accomplished one of his goals in coming to London. Damn it! You traitor! Why are you helping these virtual humans? Zhibi was furious. He tried to rush past Li Bai several times, but Li Bai stuck to him like a glue. Even when Zhibi opened the gate of the void, Li Bai would still chase after him. He did not give Zhibi any chance to get close to Gu Xianyuan. Zhibi questioned Li Bai angrily. What do you mean by virtual humans? I'm a human. Of course, I'm on the side of humans. What's so strange about that? Li Bai said calmly. We're humans too. We're the real humans. These virtual humans deserve to be expelled. This world should be ours. Zhibi said loudly. You're a bandit. Only a bandit would get rid of their master. Li Bai scolded. That's right. So what if we're bandits? Aren't you an outsider? Aren't you a bandit? Zhibi scolded. It's our destiny to expel these virtual humans. We're just carrying out the law of the universe. If we don't get rid of the humans, we'll be the ones getting rid of them. What destiny? What law? I don't know anything about that. Li Bai pushed Zhibi back again. This world is so big. Why can't we live in harmony with the original humans? We're all compatriots of the same origin. Why do we have to fight each other to the death? Humph. This is the mark that is engraved in our blood. We outsiders must kill these virtual people. This is our destiny. Don't you understand? Don't you have the desire to kill when you see these hollow humans? Jeeb asked. Bai doesn't. Li Bai raised his eyebrows. Bai seems to be a free man. What? You're a free man? Zhibi's brows twitched, and he said in horror, the Glastonbury stronghold has never provoked the Freedom Metropolis. Why are you getting involved in this matter? You're even siding with the Hollow Man? Could it be that the Freedom Metropolis has completely changed its stance and is siding with the Hollow Man? I don't know what Freedom City is. Don't spout nonsense. Li Bai frowned. You're the one who's spouting nonsense. Which free man in the world isn't from a free city? Which free man in the world hasn't been enlightened by those busybodies in the free metropolis? Zhibi's face was filled with disbelief. Bai really isn't from a free city. I've only been in this world for less than 10 days. I've never seen anyone from a free city. I'm not interested in joining a free city either, Li Bai repeated. What a joke. How can you pull out the destiny in your body without someone from a free city? Don't tell me you don't have a destiny in your body since you came to this world. Zhibi said. P.S. A reader told the author that Yuan Ko calls the filth in his body filth, which is very unscientific. Yuan Ko should have another name for filth. The author thinks it makes sense. Therefore, from now on, Yuan Ko calls the filth in his body filth. Only those who are sober and free will call it filth. After all, this book was designed from scratch, so there are many unscientific parts. It's unrealistic to change it from beginning to end, so the author can only add some settings at the last minute. If there's a chance to republish it in the future, the author will revise the entire book. Many settings and bugs will be fixed too. I'm sorry. Just pretend you don't have it, Li Bai said. Liar. Zhi scolded loudly, then started to tangle with Li Bai again. On the other side, Gu Xianyuan had already collected all the sword ladies in the hall into her dimension. However, what made Gu Xianyuan a little anxious was that she didn't find any trace of the broken sword in this hall. This broken sword was the reason why Gu Xianyuan went through so much trouble to come to this stronghold. Only by finding the broken sword of the extinguished immortal sword could Gu Xianyuan become a real spirit sword wielder. At this time, there was not much golden blood left in Gu Xuanyuan's body. According to the estimation of Xianyuan's sword, in 2 days at most, Gu Xianyuan would turn back into Guhan. If Gu Xianyuan still couldn't become a spirit sword wielder at that time, then the only ending that awaited Gu Xianyuan was the shattering of her body. Let me ask you, where are the broken swords here? Where did the broken swords here go? Gu Xuanyuan's vision was very sharp. After scanning a few times, she determined that there was no broken sword in this hall. As for the compartment or the secret room, Gu Xianyuan also used her sword qi to check, and found that all the walls were solid. There was no possibility of there being a secret room. In other words, the broken sword of the extinguished immortal sword was not in this mystic sect. Humph, a slut like you is not qualified to talk to me. Zhi looked at Gu Xianyuan with an extremely disdainful gaze. He felt that if Li Bai didn't stop him, he would have already killed this damn woman. This woman was completely a slut who relied on men. He, Zhi, didn't put this kind of woman in his eyes at all. Gu Xianyuan wasn't angry when she heard this. She looked around the hall and slowly said, "If you don't tell me, I will destroy this hall and even the entire mystic sect." You. Zhi's face changed. Gu Xuanyuan's words seemed to have poked his Achilles heel. With the strength of you and Li Bai, if you fought with all your strength, this hall would have been destroyed long ago. However, you have been suppressing your strength, not daring to vent any of your attacks on the surrounding walls. You don't even dare to destroy a table or a chair in this hall. It seems that this hall is very important to you. What do you think if I destroy it? After Gu Xianyuan finished speaking, the tip of the extinguished immortal sword spat out a stream of sword qi. Although Zhi was far away from this sword qi, he could still feel the power of this sword qi. He had no doubt that once this sword qi was vented in the hall, the entire hall would be turned into powder in an instant. You really are a slut who only knows how to use these tricks to threaten others. Do you dare to fight me? If you defeat me, I will tell you. Zhi roared angrily. It seemed that this hall was indeed his Achilles' heel. However, Zhi was not willing to be threatened like this, so he angrily demanded to fight Gu Xianyuan, although he felt that Gu Xianyuan didn't have the courage to fight him. If I defeat you, you will tell me where the broken sword is, right? Zhi thought that Gu Xianyuan would deliberately avoid his provocation, but he did not expect her to ask him in such a way, as if she was not afraid of fighting him at all. That's right, I, Zhi, am a man from the grassland, and men from the grassland never lie. If you can really defeat me, I will not hide it. Otherwise, you can just destroy it. It's just a thought for me. If it's destroyed, then so be it. It will allow me, Zhi, to completely break free from the past. Zhi said loudly. At the same time, he began to think about how he would kill this slut Gu Xianyuan in a second if she really agreed to fight him. Alright. It's a deal. Gu Xianyuan nodded. We can't fight here. Let's fight outside. Jibi quickly said. Sure. Master Li Bai, please let him out. Gu Xianyuan turned to Li Bai and said. As long as you are happy. Li Bai withdrew his sword and gave up on fighting Jibi. Jibi angrily walked out of the door, followed by Li Bai and Gu Xianyuan. The three of them ran out of the monastery. Master Li Bai, how's it going? Did you find a suitable weapon? Xian Qiji immediately ran up to Li Bai and asked. However, halfway through, he noticed that Jibi's expression was not right. It was as if he was about to kill someone. Meanwhile, the woman that Li Bai had grabbed earlier walked out of the monastery on her own. She was no longer under Li Bai's control. What's going on? Seeing this scene, Xian Qiji asked in confusion. I think it's because they couldn't divide the loot equally. That's why both of them are angry. After all, this woman is too beautiful, Qin Hui said enviously. It was the first time that he had seen Gu Xuanyuan's face clearly. He thought that Jibi's expression was because he was fighting with Li Bai over the woman. Qin Hui had long gotten used to it. Let's fight. When they were about 2 kilometers away from the monastery, Jibi took out his golden longbow from his back and pointed it at Li Bai and Gu Xianyuan. What? Are they really going to fight? Xian Qiji and the other two were shocked when they saw this scene. They quickly went up to Li Bai and advised him that they were all on the same side. There was no need to fight with weapons. I won't fight with him for nothing. Don't worry. Li Bai smiled and pulled Xian Qiji and the other two away, leaving the battlefield to Gu Xianyuan. What's going on? Xian Qiji and the other two were still confused. They had no idea what was going on. Jeeb did not explain anything to them. Instead, he spoke with the weapon in his hand. He quickly pulled his longbow 3 times in a row with one hand, and 3 golden arrows of qi shot out of thin air toward Gu Xianyuan. What? Jibi's opponent is this woman? At this moment, Xian Qiji and the other two realized that the other party in this battle was not Li Bai but the woman that Li Bai had brought with him. What a powerful golden arrow! This woman is dead meat. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei could not help but shrink their heads when they saw the 3 arrows shot by Jibi. They felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. Although the two of them were very intelligent, they were not Yuan Ko's combat power. Their real combat power was even weaker than that of a Soul Realm Yuan Ko. If any of the 3 arrows were to hit them, they would die on the spot. There was no way they could survive. Therefore, they thought that Gu Xianyuan was dead meat as well. But the truth was always unexpected. Gu Xianyuan lightly said, boring. The exterminating immortal sword in her hand lightly moved. The 3 golden arrow qis were directly dispersed by Gu Xianyuan. Not even a single strand of Gu Xuanyuan's hair was injured. I didn't expect you to be so capable. But it's not surprising. How would a useless person dare to come here and ask for a beating? Jibi cursed. He pulled the golden bow in his hand to its fullest extent and loosened his fingers. Thousands of arrow qis shot out of the bow, all of them targeting Gu Xianyuan. Jibi even yelled, B*****, why don't you block these thousands of arrow qis if you're so capable? I told you, it's really boring. Gu Xianyuan had played this kind of game many times on the platform. Those sword bearers tried their best, but they could not break the fragile flagpole with their sword qi, let alone hit Gu Xuanyuan's body. Gu Xianyuan only used one move. 9 swords of mysterious heavenly sword spring directly blocked all the arrow qi. Except for some sword essence, there was no other consumption. You are actually so powerful. At this time, Jibi realized that he might have underestimated his opponent. Don't say that I'm bullying you. Use your most powerful skill. I'll let you shoot 3 arrows. After 3 arrows, I'll take your dog life. Gu Xianyuan said indifferently. What a powerful virtual person. She can actually block Jibi's golden arrow qi. She is at least a human spirit sword level sword bearer. Sir Li Bai, how did you defeat such a powerful sword bearer? After witnessing the battle between Gu Xianyuan and Zhibi, Xian Qiji touched the sweat on his forehead and asked Li Bai curiously, "How could Bai have the ability to defeat her? She was captured by Bai willingly." Li Bai said with a smile, "What?" Xian Qiji and the other two were stunned at the same time, and then they began to retreat involuntarily. They stopped when they were 100 meters away from Li Bai and looked at Li Bai with vigilance. At this time, they realized that Li Bai might not be their accomplice. "Don't worry, your passion and respect for Bai came from the bottom of your hearts, and you sincerely want to be friends with Bai. Bai won't fight with his friends, and he won't hurt his friends." Li Bai looked at the three vigilant people and said with a wry smile, "Bai took the liberty to come here today to help her friends. Bai will not kill anyone in this stronghold. Miss Shirhan is a human, and so are you. We are all human beings, so Bai will not fight with her own kind." Li Bai's words were powerful, and Xian Qiji and the other two were skeptical. The two sides were in a deadlock for a while. On the other side, the battle between Gu Xianyuan and Zhibi was at its most intense. After Zhibi confirmed that an ordinary golden arrow could not cause any harm to Gu Xianyuan, he could only acquiesce to Gu Xuanyuan's words. "I've always heard Shui Rengue boast about how he can conquer a mountain with 3 arrows. Well, today I, Zhibi, will shoot you, bitch, to death with 3 arrows. I'll let you know why Zhibi is called Zhibi." After saying this, Zhibi pulled out a golden arrow from his waist out of thin air. The color of this arrow was exactly the same as the golden longbow in Zhibi's hand, and the material seemed to be exactly the same. It seemed that this golden arrow was the real arrow of Zhibi's golden longbow. This was also the first time that Zhibi used a real arrow in a battle, so it must be extremely powerful. This arrow is called the fine gold arrow. One fine gold arrow can only be refined with a ton of gold. It's perfect to shoot you with it today. While speaking, Zhibi slowly drew the bow and arrow, and the sharp tip of the sword was aimed at Gu Xuanyuan's indifferent face. Chapter 1202. Interesting, but it's a little weak. The fine gold arrow that had just been shot out was now in Gu Xuanyuan's hand. In the face of the powerful fine gold arrow, Gu Xianyuan did not panic. She blocked the fine gold arrow with the blade of the Zhu Xian sword. In the end, the fine gold arrow that had lost all its power was directly held in Gu Xuanyuan's hand. However, if one looked closely at Gu Xianyuan, they would find that her left hand that was holding the sword was trembling slightly. Obviously, the power of this arrow was not harmless to Gu Xianyuan. There were not many things in the world that could make Gu Xuanyuan's hand tremble. "You forced me to do this, bitch." Seeing that his precious fine gold arrow was held in the hand of his opponent, Zhibi was so angry that his whole body was trembling. He gritted his teeth and pulled out a long arrow from his waist. However, this arrow was different from the previous fine gold arrow. Although this arrow was in the shape of an arrow, it did not have a physical body. Instead, it was a flame burning in the air. The flame could actually maintain the shape of the arrow in the air for a long time. This alone showed that this arrow was extraordinary. My goodness, Zhibi really put in a lot of effort this time. He even took out this Tai arrow. Seeing this arrow made of flame, Xian Qiji said with a face full of amazement. Tai arrow? It's said that when the Eastern Emperor Tai fell, the blood essence between his eyebrows transformed into a flaming arrow? Hearing Xian Qiji's words, Qin Hui seemed to have recalled something, and a look of horror appeared on his face. "Hey! What are you talking about? What exactly is this Tai arrow?" A voice suddenly sounded among the 3 of them. They turned their heads and saw that it was Li Bai. The 3 of them suddenly felt a chill and shut their mouth. "Hey, that's why we say that we are in different positions, but we are all brothers. Could it be that you were all hypocritical just now?" Li Bai said with a whimper. F***ck, you're the only one who's hypocritical from the beginning. We're all fools who've been deceived by you. The three of them had their own reasons for cursing Li Bai. But since Li Bai had said so, and they truly admired Li Bai, they hesitated for a while, then explained, according to the legend, back in the prehistorical era, when East Emperor Tai died in a battle, he made an arrow out of the spot between his eyebrows and launched a sneak attack at Zhu Wu and Zhu Rong. Zhu Rong didn't notice it and was shot through his temple. He died together with East Emperor Tai, becoming the first Zhu Wu to die in a battle. After that drop of blood killed Zhu Wu and Zhu Rong, there was still a lot of power left in that drop of blood. Added with Zhu Wu's blood in Zhu Rong's body, it became an arrow completely made of fire. This arrow contained the power of East Emperor Tai and Zhu Wu and Zhu Rong, two prehistorical level Yuan Ko. You can imagine how terrifying it is. Xian Qiji explained with a lingering fear. Later, this arrow fell into the hands of Temujin, who passed it on to Zhibi, and it became Zhibi's most precious treasure. I heard that except for the battle 300 years ago, Zhibi had never taken out this arrow. This is the first time we've seen it. That's a really good arrow. Hearing Xian Qiji's explanation, Li Bai praised sincerely. Why aren't you worried about your girlfriend? The power of this arrow is extraordinary. Your girlfriend might die under this arrow, Xian Qiji said as he rolled his eyes. Life and death are decreed by fate. This is a fair duel. Bai has nothing to worry about. Li Bai didn't look worried at all. I really don't understand the relationship between you two, Xian Qiji murmured in a low voice. Open. Zhibi put the bow on the shelf and pulled the golden bow to the extreme with both hands. The golden bow was almost pulled into the shape of a full moon under the great force. At the same time, Zhibi's forehead was instantly covered in sweat. It was not ordinary sweat, but blood-red sweat, or rather, it was not sweat, but Zhibi's blood. Go! Zhibi's hands suddenly loosened, and he fell to the ground like a puppet that had lost its soul. In order to shoot this Tai arrow, Zhibi had consumed almost all of his strength. This woman is dead. Staring at the Tai arrow, Zhibi gnashed his teeth and said. He didn't believe that anyone could survive this terrifying Tai arrow. Good arrow. When the high one arrow was shot out, Gu Xianyuan let out a heartfelt sigh of admiration. However, Gu Xuanyuan's expression changed in an instant, before turning back to normal and saying, However, it is impossible to kill me, Gu Han, with just a single arrow. Gu Xianyuan stepped back with her left foot, and her whole body instantly tensed up. Holding the immortal slaying sword vertically in front of her, Gu Xuanyuan's eyes and the sword seemed to condense into a straight line, and the other end of the line was facing the arrow of the Tai arrow. Heaven-splitting chaos. Heaven-splitting chaos was the best way to deal with the Tai arrow, which contained the power of creatures born from the primeval world. Gu Xianyuan and Zhibi completed their actions in the blink of an eye. What followed was the collision between the two forces. In less than 0.1 seconds, the Tai arrow collided with the immortal slaying sword, and the sky full of flames instantly surrounded Gu Xianyuan. In the blink of an eye, Gu Xianyuan became a fireball dumpling. So hot. So hot. Apart from Li Bai, Xian Qiji and the other two hurriedly retreated a few hundred steps due to the terrifying heat wave, and retreated a distance of a few hundred meters. It should be known that they were originally a kilometer away from the battlefield, and it was reasonable to say that the terrifying flames should not have been able to burn them. However, these powerful Yuan Ko retreated continuously because of the heat. When the flames gradually subsided, their clothes became scorched black, which showed how high the temperature was just now. Xian Qiji and the other two who were a kilometer away were already like this, so one could imagine how hot Gu Xianyuan, who was in the center of the flames, was. It should be known that Gu Xianyuan was currently an incomplete sword wielder, and could not use his personal shield. His body was in a state of no protection, and if he was burned by this terrifying flame, he would probably turn into a pile of ashes. Is Gu Xianyuan dead? Apart from Li Bai, This question popped up in everyone's mind. However, the answer to this question was soon answered. The flames of the Tai arrow came and went quickly. After the flames gradually dissipated, a body appeared in front of everyone. Pure white and crystal clear skin, a well-proportioned and tall figure, slender and straight legs, a head of soft long hair that covered her entire buttocks, a plump and beautiful face. Each of these characteristics could only be possessed by a top beauty. At this time, all these characteristics were completely gathered on this person. The eyes of the people around her were glued to her, and their saliva instantly flowed to the ground. Even her opponent, Zhibi, and her brother and friend, Li Bai, were no exception. No wonder Li Bai and Zhibi fought for this woman. If this is my woman, even if I have to risk my life, I will protect her. Qin Hui and Wang Jingwei thought in a daze. Bai and Miss Shirhan have such a good relationship. If Bai pursues Miss Shirhan, will Miss Shirhan agree to be with Bai Chunxiao for a while? After all, Bai is so handsome and has done a lot for Miss Shirhan. Miss Shirhan should give Bai Chunxiao face. Li Bai also thought in a daze. The great poet from ancient times to the present had instantly turned into a crazy man. Damn it! Gu Xuanyuan's face turned red. He was a man. How could he stand such a hot gaze from other men? The dimensional pocket flashed, and a new set of clothes appeared on Gu Xuanyuan's body, covering up the spring scenery once again. What a pity! What a pity! If only I could look at it a few more times. Seeing Gu Xianyuan put on his clothes again, everyone sighed in unison. The time of the whole scene just now was less than 0.5 seconds. It was too short. It was not fun to look at it. However, when Gu Xianyuan put on his clothes, everyone also regained their senses and immediately became extremely surprised. They couldn't understand why Gu Xuanyuan's body was not injured at all. Since Gu Xuanyuan's jade body was exposed, it meant that Gu Xuanyuan's clothes had been burned to ashes. At the same time, it also meant that Gu Xuanyuan's personal shield had been broken by the flame of the Tai arrow. If this was the case, why was Gu Xuanyuan's body not injured at all, and was still as perfect as a baby? This was simply an incredible thing. That was close. Fortunately, I didn't put a drop of emperor blood in my mouth. Otherwise, it would have been really troublesome. Gu Xianyuan muttered in his heart. Without a personal shield, Gu Xuanyuan's defense ability was indeed very worrying, so his body was inevitably injured by the Tai arrow. At the moment when the flame fell on his body, not only were Gu Xuanyuan's clothes burned, Gu Xuanyuan's body also suffered great damage. Even his bones were burnt black in an instant. But the problem was that Gu Xianyuan had the emperor blood, a magical medicine that could instantly save her life. Gu Xianyuan immediately swallowed a drop of the emperor blood. No matter how serious the injury was, it was healed in an instant. Therefore, when the flame dissipated, Gu Xuanyuan's body still appeared as perfect as a baby. Because this was a completely new body, of course it looked as perfect as a newborn. Impossible! Seeing Gu Xuanyuan's unharmed body, Jeeb took a few steps back in horror. He couldn't understand why Gu Xianyuan was unharmed. Even if Temujin was here, he wouldn't be able to do this. You still have one last arrow. Seeing the dazed Jeeb, Gu Xianyuan said faintly. It seemed that there was no need for this last arrow to continue. What last arrow? I've already used the Tai arrow. There's no last arrow, Jeeb said with a pained expression. All right, then keep your promise and tell me where the broken sword is. Gu Xianyuan walked to Jeeb's side and said. At the king's tomb. Jeeb seemed to have accepted his fate. He lowered his head and said lifelessly, Sir Tesla said that King Arthur's tomb was too empty and needed some decorations, so I put the broken sword there. King's tomb? You mean the broken sword was placed at Artoria's tombstone? Hearing this answer, Gu Xianyuan suddenly felt a headache. Gu Xianyuan already knew that Glastonbury had Artoria's tombstone. Going to this tombstone to see where Artoria was buried was one of Gu Xuanyuan's original plans. This meant that Gu Xianyuan would have to go to the king's tomb sooner or later. There was no need to waste time here with Jeeb to find the celestial extinguishing sword. How could Gu Xianyuan not feel a headache? Why did you put the broken sword there? Gu Xianyuan asked out of curiosity. Before King Arthur rebelled, I had a conversation with King Arthur. She told me that the sword she loved the most in her life was the sword in the stone. However, the sword in the stone had been broken into two. I remembered this story, so I found the broken sword and put it on her tombstone. Jeeb was surprisingly honest and told her the answer in detail. Let's go. It was almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Gu Xianyuan did not know how much longer Jiendi, who was in London, could buy her time. Although she had the ability to kill Zhibi at this time, it was bound to waste a lot of time. If the 3 flood-level bandits rushed back, Gu Xianyuan would not have the chance to take the broken sword away. Thinking of this, Gu Xianyuan did not want to continue fighting with Jeeb. She called Li Bai and the two directly rushed to the king's tomb. Master Jeeb, are you okay? Seeing that Li Bai and Gu Xianyuan had left, Xian Qiji and the other two rushed up and helped Zhibi up from the ground as if he had lost his soul. Seeing Zhibi in such a dispirited state, Xian Qiji and the other two sighed in their hearts. This was a universe-level master, but he was beaten to the point that he lost his mind in such a short period of time. It was too pitiful. When did such a top female sword-wielder appear in the human world? Could it be that the explosive flame sword immortal who had disappeared in London had returned? No, I haven't lost yet. Jeeb, who was in a daze just a moment ago, suddenly struggled to stand up from the ground with a ferocious expression on his face. He touched his chest with his left hand and clenched his jaws so hard as if he was going to break his teeth. Hey! I say, Jeeb, don't be so stupid. It's not worth it to do this. Xian Qiji seemed to have thought of something and immediately said to Jeeb with a cold face, "Get lost." Zhibi pushed Xian Qiji away and disappeared into the void. This is Artoria's tombstone, the place where her body was buried in reality? Gu Xianyuan stood quietly in front of Artoria's tombstone and said, "This tombstone was really beyond Gu Xuanyuan's expectations." Gu Xianyuan thought that no matter how ugly King Arthur's tombstone was, there would at least be a stone tablet. However, there was only a wooden tablet erected in front of her. Below the wooden tablet, there was only a simple rectangle surrounded by a few pieces of marble. This rectangle was not even as big as a coffin. I wonder what is written on this wooden tablet. Gu Xianyuan found some words written on the wooden tablet, but these words were written in pure English. In this era where Chinese characters unified the whole world, Gu Xianyuan had no interest in learning English at all. In fact, English had become a small language that was on the verge of extinction. Even his personal terminal didn't have an English translation function, so how could Gu Xianyuan recognize these English words? Forget it. I heard that this is just a cenotaph. There's nothing to be nostalgic about. Gu Xianyuan said faintly and threw the wooden tablet aside. Her attention was fully focused on the broken sword that was placed on the wooden raft. This was a sword that looked exactly the same as the Zhu Xian sword. The same appearance, the same simplicity, the same no difference from an ordinary iron sword. If Gu Xianyuan didn't know it in advance, she wouldn't be able to guess that this sword was one of the 4 Zhu Xian swords, the Extinguish Immortal sword, which was said to be able to cut off the whole world. I can't believe that my sister actually fell into this situation. The Zhu Xian sword, which hadn't spoken for a long time, finally spoke again after more than 10 days. After all, it was seeing its own sister, so how could it come out and lament? What should I do next? Gu Xianyuan asked the Zhu Xian sword. I don't know. Gu Xianyuan never thought that the Zhu Xian sword would actually tell her this. Didn't you tell me that as long as I find the Extinguish Immortal sword and synchronize it, I can become a real spirit sword wielder? Gu Xuanyuan's face turned cold as she questioned the Zhu Xian sword. That's what I said. The Zhu Xian sword said indifferently, what I said is also the truth. As long as you can synchronize with Sister Extinguish Immortal, you can indeed become a real spirit sword wielder. But from the beginning to the end, I never told you that I know how to synchronize with a broken Extinguish Immortal sword. You! Gu Xuanyuan's cheeks turned red. She had calculated everything to this point, but in the end, she was made a fool of by her own Zhu Xian sword. This made Gu Xuanyuan's heart not know what kind of feeling it was. This was only secondary. The real key was that if she couldn't synchronize with the Extinguish Immortal sword within 2 days, then she would only have a dead end. Gu Xianyuan didn't want to die, she still had a lot of things that she hadn't done. Forget it, if you die, I will also go back to sleep, and the dream of us 4 sisters will be completely destroyed. The Zhu Xian sword lamented, and then, without Gu Xuanyuan's control, the sword took the initiative to wave out a sword qi, which directly cut off Gu Xuanyuan's left arm. In an instant, Gu Xianyuan became a one-armed person. What are you doing? Just as Gu Xianyuan uttered a question, she felt that her consciousness began to fade, and her soul gradually separated from her body. Along with the arm that was cut off, it slowly entered the broken Extinguish Immortal sword. Find Sister Extinguish Immortal's soul, and then let her revive and return to the real world. Otherwise, me, you, and Sister Extinguish Immortal will forever be imprisoned in this broken sword. This was the last sentence that Gu Xianyuan heard from the Zhu Xian sword before she fainted. Chapter 1203. I'm finally a man again. Feeling the little brother that he had not seen for a long time, Gu Han said with a sigh. He had finally returned to his true self, back to the handsome Gu Han. However, Gu Han could not lament for too long. He soon had to face a new fact, that was, he did not know where he was now. The scene in front of Gu Han felt both familiar and strange at the same time. What was familiar were the high-rise buildings and the endless stream of pedestrians, all of which proved that this was a busy human city. But there was something wrong with this city, no matter how he looked at it. Although there were high-rise buildings around him, the height of the buildings was generally less than 100 meters. Only about 3/10 of the buildings had a height of more than 100 meters. As for high-rise buildings above 200 meters, they were extremely rare, and there were only a few conspicuous buildings in the entire city. Gu Han could not see the high-rise buildings above 300 meters at all. There were no high-rise buildings above 300 meters in this city. How could this be? This discovery made it very difficult for Gu Han to understand. Even the most underdeveloped Jerusalem-based city, in order to meet the needs of the increasing population, the height of the buildings was generally more than 500 meters, and there were many high-rise buildings more than 1 kilometer. Only the real rich and powerful could afford to live in a 2-story building. This was the first time in Gu Han's life that he had seen such a city with such small houses. In Gu Han's memory, none of the 8 base cities had characteristics that matched this city. Is this an antique car? After getting used to the buildings in this world, Gu Han was shocked by the dense line of cars on the street. This kind of car that relied on 4 wheels to move close to the ground had been completely eliminated as early as 400 years ago. In Gu Han's life, he had experienced the style of an antique off-road vehicle in the Betrayal of Artoria dungeon. Other than that, he had never seen a car that was completely buried in a coffin. This is definitely not a modern society. Gu Han was a smart person. With the 2 discoveries just now, he could guess that the era he was in was not the year 3011 AD. At the very least, it was 2,600 years ago, the era when cars had not been completely eliminated. This person is so strange. What clothes is he wearing? How come I've never seen this style of clothes before? I think it's pretty. That's right, there are actually 8 sword sheaths hanging on his waist, and these sword sheaths are all empty. What does this mean? Oh, I know. This must be cosplay. This person must be cosplaying an anime character with 8 empty scabbards. It can't be. I'm a veteran in Billy. How come I've never heard of a character with 8 empty scabbards? This was the conversation between two girls on the street. Gohan's ears couldn't help but twitch when he heard it. He turned his head and looked at the clothes of the two girls. They were wearing a short corset that exposed their stomachs and a pair of jeans that were small to the B, coupled with 2 pairs of slender snow-white thighs. It could be said that they were very sexy to men. Cosplay? Anime characters? Empty scabbard? Veteran in Billy? These new terms that he had never heard of entered Gohan's ears, and it made Gohan's mind light up. He muttered to himself softly, "Could it be that I didn't return to 400 years ago, but to the era before the apocalypse? First, I have to determine the time." Although he was in a completely unfamiliar environment, Gohan behaved very calmly. He quickly made the most correct decision and rushed into a shopping mall on a nearby street. Through the continuous playback of the old-fashioned TV in the mall, Gohan finally learned the time of this era. August 1st, 2024. The 8th day before the apocalypse. Looking at the time displayed on the TV, Gohan's expression was unclear. As humans after the apocalypse, they might be able to forget their parents' birthdays, or perhaps they could forget their own birthdays, but they would never forget the date of August 8th, 2024. This was because it was on this day that the first person in the world, Yuan Ko, broke through the dimensional space and came to the human world. Within 3 days, half of the human population was wiped out. Within 2 months, there were less than 300 million people left on the planet. This was a time that countless humans would tremble in fear when they thought of it. Why am I here? Is this the real world, or an illusory dream? After confirming the time, Gohan began to think about the reality of this world. In other words, Gohan did not know if he had traveled through time and truly returned to before the apocalypse 1,000 years ago, or if he had entered a dream or an illusory dream. Although he had these doubts, Gohan was 90% sure that this was not the real world, but some kind of dream or illusory dream. Gohan recalled what had happened in front of the king's tomb. His consciousness followed his broken arm into the immortal extinguishing sword. At this time, Gohan's mind was still echoing with the last words left by the immortal exterminating sword. Find Sister Juexian's soul and help her revive and return to the real world. Otherwise, you, me, and Sister Juexian will forever be imprisoned in this broken sword. Looks like I'm most likely in the immortal extinguishing sword's dream. Gohan carefully savored the last words left by the immortal exterminating sword. If the immortal exterminating sword wanted Gohan to help Sister Juexian return to the real world, this meant that the world they were in was an illusory one, and it was the world within the broken sword. The immortal exterminating sword had also pointed out the way to leave this world. It was to find the soul of the immortal extinguishing sword and wake it up. It sounded very simple, but Gohan was completely at a loss. How to wake the soul of the immortal extinguishing sword aside? Finding the soul of the immortal extinguishing sword was a huge problem. Let's check my condition first. Gohan found a bench in the mall and sat down. He searched his body and found that his personal terminal was still embedded in his wrist, but it showed that it could not connect to the network. Of course, this was normal. It would be strange if he could connect to the quantum network in this illusory dream. Next was his dimensional pocket. Most of the items in his dimensional pocket, including food, items, maglev flying cars, and money were all in his dimensional pocket. Not a single one was missing. However, everything related to the sword mistress, such as the sword mark dust, the dimensional crystal, and all of Gohan's sword mistress's real body in the dimensional pocket had disappeared. What does this mean? Gohan carefully tried to figure out the meaning behind this fact. Is it trying to tell me that the sword mistress doesn't exist in this world? Gohan thought about it and felt very conflicted. If the sword mistress didn't exist in this world, then what was the immortal extinguishing sword that created this world? Mom? That's weird. That big brother is sitting there motionless like a wooden man. Perhaps because Gohan was too focused on thinking, he didn't move at all for more than an hour. He looked like a statue. It was no wonder that some children thought Gohan was very strange. Don't provoke them. They'll kidnap the baby and run down the mountain to be the daughter of a country bumpkin. The mother threatened her daughter. This made Gohan feel very amused. In the age of destruction, the concept of the country bumpkin had long since disappeared. But why does this voice sound so familiar? Gohan felt that the little girl's voice was unexpectedly familiar. He looked in the direction of the voice and his body stiffened. Whether it was the appearance, the voice, or the behavior, this little girl talking to his mother was clearly his sword mistress, Qingpin's sword. Qingpin! Gohan instinctively shouted at the little loli. The little loli raised her head in surprise. She looked at Gohan with a face full of curiosity and asked, "Big brother, how do you know the name of this poor person? Have you seen Qingpin before? Who are you? How do you know my daughter's name?" Compared to Qingpin's innocence, Qingpin's mother was very vigilant. She looked at Gohan with caution. If Gohan didn't answer well, the mother would probably call the police for help. "It's nothing. I just know her," Gohan said calmly. "Suspicious. Very suspicious." The mother immediately lowered her head and took out her mobile phone from her pocket. When she raised her head and was about to dial 110, she found that there was suddenly no one in front of her. The young man who was talking to her just now had disappeared without a trace, as if he had never appeared in front of her. What the hell? The mother felt a chill in her heart. She gave up the idea of buying things. She pulled her daughter, called a Didi Express, and ran home as if she was running for her life. However, the mother didn't notice that during the short period of time when they got on the car, a figure rushed under the car at an extremely fast speed and never came out again. "Old Zhang, I'm telling you, I met a pervert today. I'm afraid he's going to do something to our daughter." After returning home, the mother told the husband what happened today with exaggerated details. However, the husband obviously didn't care. After casually dealing with his wife, he continued to watch TV and surf the internet. It wasn't until 12 o'clock at night that the parents entered the bedroom to rest. At this time, a black shadow suddenly appeared outside the window of Qingpin's children's bedroom. Qingpin's mother was careful and deliberately locked the window. However, she was facing an inhuman existence. The other party's hand only shook the window slightly, and the window lock was instantly shaken off. The window was then pulled open, and the black shadow quickly rushed into the room. Well, what a scene of a night raid on a loli. Chapter 1204. Qingpin. Qingpin. The half-asleep little loli suddenly heard a voice calling her name. She drowsily opened her eyes and saw a dark figure lying on her bed. A dark face was facing her. The face was only a few centimeters away from hers. Woo-woo. The little loli was about to scream instinctively, but her mouth was blocked by something soft. It turned out that Gohan had lowered his head in a hurry and blocked Qingpin's lips with his own, not letting the other party make a sound. Well, if one didn't know the inside story, this scene alone was enough to make Gohan suffer for 3 years. In fact, if it were another woman, Gohan wouldn't use his own lips. He could quickly rub a ball of sword energy and throw it directly into the other party's throat, ensuring that the other party wouldn't be able to say a word. However, it didn't matter since the person in front of him was Qingpin. Gohan had eaten Qingpin's small lips countless times and was already used to it. It was no big deal. "Qingpin, don't worry. I won't hurt you. I came to ask you something. Can you promise me not to scream later?" Although his mouth was blocked by Qingpin's mouth, his words sounded a little muffled, but he could still hear it clearly. Woo-woo. Qingpin couldn't speak. He could only nod his head like a chick pecking rice, indicating that he agreed to Gohan's request. Okay. It turned out that Gohan had been careless. He instinctively thought that Chinpin was his own Chinpin and neglected some basic precautions. However, the current Chinpin was not the original Chinpin after all. In addition, Chinpin usually looked a little muddle-headed, but in fact, he was a very smart little guy. So, from the perspective of a battle of wits, the unguarded Gohan had already lost more than half of the battle. Help! Mommy, help! There's a bad person, Mommy! In the end, Chinpin directly threw the promise he had just made to the back of his head. As soon as Gohan's lips left her lips, he opened his little throat and screamed loudly. Although the little loli had a soft voice, her voice was very sharp. She could shout out sounds that many adults couldn't. Therefore, Chinpin's parents, who lived next door, were immediately alerted. Gohan could clearly hear a rush of footsteps rushing towards Chinpin's room. It's you, the pervert from today. The light in Chinpin's bedroom was turned on with a snap. A pair of parents in disheveled clothes appeared in front of Gohan with a frightened face. His mother pointed at Gohan's head and immediately called out Gohan's identity. Meanwhile, his father conveniently picked up a child's scale from the side of the door and directly smashed it towards Gohan's head. With his father's ability, of course, it was impossible for him to hit Gohan. Gohan immediately turned his head and dodged. However, after he did this, Gohan regretted it because Gohan was currently pressing down on Chinpin. Gohan dodged it, and the child's scale smashed towards Chinpin's poor little head. Sigh! Gohan sighed. At the moment when the scale was about to smash down on the poor man's head, he flicked out a stream of sword chi from the tip of his finger and struck the scale. The scale, which was originally falling vertically, was instantly sent flying out and smashed into the wall opposite. In the end, the entire scale broke into pieces, and a small pit the size of a fist was smashed out on the wall. Ah! Seeing this scene, his mother instinctively let out a scream, while his father trembled and rushed to his room, muttering 110. 110. He was probably going to call the police. Although this was an illusory world, it would be troublesome if there were police in the illusory world. Therefore, Gohan directly shot out 2 sword auras and hit the back of the parents' heads. He directly knocked them out and saved a lot of trouble. Papa! Mom! Seeing that her parents had fainted, the little girl, Chinpin, instinctively thought that her parents had been killed by Gohan. She immediately began to cry and constantly hit Gohan, who was on top of her, trying to push him away. Don't worry, your parents are not dead. Gohan originally wanted to say that he only knocked them out, but on second thought, Gohan directly changed his words and threatened, I just injected them with poison, and only my unique antidote can detoxify it. Do whatever I tell you to do next. Otherwise, even if the police come, your parents will not be able to be saved. Sniff. Sniff. Chinpin responded to Gohan while sniffing her own nose. This pear blossom in tears was unexpectedly very cute, which made Gohan involuntarily feel that it was very cool to bully a little girl. Chinpin, don't cry. Good brother, what do you want Chinpin to do? As long as you can cure my parents, Chinpin will listen to you. Chinpin can give all my toys, all my dolls to you. This world's Chinpin was unexpectedly sensible and obedient, taking the initiative to say to Gohan. However, this conversation sounded like Gohan was a heinous lolicon pervert. Don't worry, I don't want your dolls. I just want you to answer a few questions. You just have to answer me in detail. Gohan repeated helplessly. Chinpin responded with an "oh," and the expression on his face finally looked a lot happier. It seemed that being able to keep his dolls and toys made Chinpin very happy. Chinpin, do you really not recognize me? I am Gohan, your master Gohan. Look at my face carefully. Do you not have any impression of me? Gohan wanted to put his whole face in front of Chinpin, so that Chinpin could see it clearly. No impression, I don't recognize you. Chinpin looked at Gohan several times as if he was looking at the enemy who killed his father, and finally gave Gohan such an answer. It doesn't make sense. If she is Chinpin, it is impossible for her not to recognize me. Is she really not Chinpin, but just a little lowly with the same appearance? After listening to Chinpin's answer, Gohan was very distressed. Let's try another way. However, Gohan did not give up so easily. He first took out a large bowl of red braised meat from his dimensional pocket. This was a specially customized red braised meat. Every taste in it was customized according to Chinpin's preferences. It was Chinpin's favorite. Therefore, Gohan sent this bowl of red braised meat to Chinpin. After forcing Chinpin to take a bite, Chinpin was deeply infatuated with this taste. She didn't even care about the tears on her face and ate the bowl of red braised meat in big mouthfuls. This once again proved that this Chinpin was Gohan's Chinpin. But the problem was that after eating this large bowl of red braised meat, Chinpin's memory of Gohan did not change. She still had no memory of Gohan. What about this? Gohan found a lot of things that Chinpin liked. In the end, he even took out his nursery bag and let Chinpin relive the old dream in his arms for a while. Although Chinpin's hobbies were useless, she still deeply loved the things that she originally liked, but she just couldn't recall her memory of Gohan. What should I do? At this time, Gohan had been busy for a few hours. Today, an orange-yellow morning light hung up, which meant that morning was coming. Gohan had been tossing and turning all night without any progress. The entire city would wake up soon. It seemed that it was impossible to wake up Chinpin in a short time, but it was inconvenient to carry this little loli with him. Just as Gohan was about to put Chinpin down for the time being and look for other ways, Chinpin suddenly pulled Gohan's sleeve and whispered, "Chinpin has been tormented by you all night. Her body is sticky and uncomfortable. Can you help Chinpin take a bath?" "Hey, what do you mean by being tormented by me all night? Her body is sticky and uncomfortable? The ambiguity in this is very serious, okay?" Gohan complained helplessly. But one night, she saw her parents fainting, crying, and eating braised pork and dongpa pork. This little loli could be said to be covered in sweat and tears. Gohan even felt a little sticky when he touched it. "Okay." Gohan patted Chinpin's head. For Chinpin's request, even if it was the unreasonable kind, Gohan couldn't help but agree to it, let alone this legitimate request. So Gohan carried Chinpin into the bathroom and found that the bathroom had a fish tank and a shower. When Gohan was about to fill the bathtub with water, he was surprised to find that the bath equipment of 1,000 years ago was completely different from that of 1,000 years later. Gohan actually didn't know how to use this set of equipment for a while. A button was pressed, and a large basin of cold water sprayed directly from Gohan's shower head, drenching Chinpin and Gohan below. "Are you an idiot?" Chinpin kicked Gohan angrily, and then climbed up Gohan's thigh to his arm. She operated the button a few times, and hot water gushed out from the bathtub on the side. This once again proved that this Chinpin was Chinpin. Otherwise, others wouldn't have the ability to climb up Gohan's body. "Okay, bathe yourself. I'm leaving." Gohan put Chinpin on the edge of the bathtub, smiled at Chinpin, and then said, "As for your parents, I have just given them the antidote. They will be fine." After that, Gohan was ready to leave the house. "Wait!" Unexpectedly, before Gohan's foot stepped out of the bathroom, Chinpin chased after him. His small body directly hit Gohan's leg, and he pulled the corner of Gohan's clothes, saying pitifully, "Gohan, help me. I don't know how to take off my clothes." Gohan turned around and looked at the weak and pitiful Chinpin. He began to consider whether he should be a little bit more beastly. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.